been thinking about you, boy. All I think about is you, boy. All I think about is. All I think about is you, boy. All I think about is. I've been thinking about you, boy. All I think about is you, boy. All I think about is. All I think about is you, boy. All I think about is.
and they can't get rid of the IS-4. Adelaide Action X, they're doing it. They set the trap, and it's working to an absolute T.
They are hard shots to take, but at the end of the day, it comes down to 10 shots, focus fire, and the Wolverines just outdid them on this one.
Good damage from the Scorpions, but I don't think it's enough. I think Matildas walk away with the win from here. They've got a 4-on-3. Missed the shot!
Admin, 57 HP, and Madhouse now has a corpse to play hull down behind. This is so scary.
Returned and Dell are sitting ducks. Scorpions are winning this fight. They are slowly but surely getting their way back into this game.
But damage ammo ranking in E100.
Oh no!
Has been completely ignored, and another fire!
Sentinels are about to be your champions of Season 5. There they go!
Hello, welcome. It's ANZPL. It is split 1 of 2023, and Cthulhu, it's week 1 of the playoffs. We've finally made it. Is it fair to say finally? I mean, at this point, right, it doesn't really feel like we've taken that long to get here, right? This split has gone very, very quickly, but we're already into playoffs. Luckily, at least, the playoffs are actually quite long this time around.
Yeah, look, exactly. You are very much correct. Yeah, the regular season definitely flew past at the speed of light almost, really. Only just about a month that it went by, and yeah, look, it was quite a action-packed, honestly, regular season. And for what it's worth, now I'm kind of looking at the previous formats and thinking, with the way how competitive it was this season, if it was the same size as the same seasons last year, it would have been an absolutely heated one as well.
It would have been a very competitive second half of the season in that second round robin. And look, even then it might have still been hard to say who would have been walking away with slots into playoffs. But we are at that point now where that's really all we have to talk about. Unfortunately for Wolverines, they're the team that does get knocked out from the regular season. Everyone else has been seeded into the playoffs in one way, shape, or form. And obviously, because of that, what they're looking forward to now, Cthulhu, is finals, right? We've been talking about getting into playoffs. That's been the main goal for the season. Now that we're into playoffs, the goal is to make it through to the finals at Fortress Sydney.
Exactly. Yeah, look, I mean, it's an exciting opportunity as well, because for once we already at least have one team confirmed one way or the other for land, that is Scorpions, who will have a much easier run compared to, I believe, even last season as well, which is already quite an exciting opportunity for them. But then we also have, teams like AX, like Panthers, like Matildas, who have evolved beyond what the bar that they've set last season, which has been already a huge spectacle to watch as well. So yeah, look, I'm definitely excited to see how will these playoffs really play out, because there's opportunities even for us to finally crown possibly a new champion as well. We are looking at all of the teams that are now, if not surpassing what Sentinels were at their prime, they're able to match it evenly.
All right, well, look, I tell you what, we should probably focus on what is going to be the land final. It's going to be a big one, as always. We're excited to get there. We get to see Karath live in the flesh, at least hopefully.
Yes, sir.
I assume he'll be there. He's pretty famous in the World of Tanks community, so look forward to that. But what else is there? Obviously, there's going to be the grand final. There's also going to be the lower bracket final as well, so we get to see 2 games of ANZPL rather than a show match and a grand final, so that's a change up from previous seasons. Obviously, there's a lot going on at Fortress Sydney as well. So I think going to be the first esports at Fortress Sydney, I want to say. As far as I know, I haven't seen anything happening there just yet. It only just opened, so it's going to be kind of cool. I haven't even been to Fortress Sydney just yet, so looking forward to checking it out. And, well, I tell you what, if you guys want some more info, check out the link. It is there. I'm sure someone can spam it in the chat as well, but fort.pub/tanks for more info. It says right there on the graphic. Cthulhu, did you have a good time at your last LAN finals? I did.
Honestly, it was a blast, really, to just get to hang out with everyone. Just the venue that Fortress had was absolutely amazing as well, and just overall it was great fun.
Yeah, definitely. All right, big highlights, of course, for me. I think the main takeaway, what I'm really looking forward to, is not necessarily watching the show match. We don't have show match. I like the fact that we've got a lower final and a grand final. I like to see more of the serious business stuff and less of the show match. So, yeah, look, that's what I'm personally looking forward to. I think it's going to pop off. I also think the fact that we get to have 3 teams going through to LAN is kind of a big deal as well, because obviously that gives the opportunity for more players to play on LAN, which is always fun.
Oh yeah, LAN is an amazing opportunity, a completely different environment as well, and honestly, I am quite keen to see how will that really work out, because no matter what, it's always going to, well, a whole new just experience for everyone really, and seeing as we possibly going to be looking at already writing up another team that will go for LAN no matter what after today, that's also quite an exciting opportunity to possibly even meet some of the newer players as well.
Who are you most excited to meet?
Oh, right. Look, I'll go for a little bit more of a broader answer and just say either Action X or Panthers. I'm very much keen to meet up with.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd like to see Action X make it through, but that's going to be a question for later on today. First, we have to start talking about the results of last week, which was the final week of the regular season, and there was some interesting results to speak to. I mean, we'll get the boring ones out of the way first. I think Scorpions over Sentinels, fine, makes sense. Sentinels been a bit up and down this season, so expected. Panthers over Matildas, personally, I thought that was the way that one was going to go. But the big one was obviously Wolverines getting the win over Action X, which, as far as the standings are concerned, didn't make much of a difference, Cthulhu, because Action X was in first anyway, or sorry, in second anyway, right? But
well, they were panned to be going for the first seed if they would have won against Wolverines, and that would have guaranteed LAN for them. That's the most probably painful part for them. For Wolverines, yeah, look, that meant that they finally sort of wrapped up the regular season with at least some points for themselves, and they were no longer a winless team. So it changed things around quite heavily as well. So for Scorpions, the fact that they won against Sentinels as well, that just put them right up above Action X to basically secure the first place.
okay, so actually now that I've got a bit of information coming through, apparently they would have had the tiebreaker win over Scorpions. So if they would have won, which they didn't. So actually it does make a big deal. So, I mean, that's a bit of a surprise to me, actually, that Action X would, of all teams, be the one to lose to the Wolverines, considering the circumstances there. But I suppose good on the Wolverines for messing up at least somebody's season. So that's going to make the job a little bit more difficult for Action X, and actually may make it potentially impossible as well, depending on how the results go in this playoffs bracket. Obviously, up against the Panthers to kick things off. Going to be a big game. I'm looking forward to that one. And winner of that will go through to the upper final against the Scorpions. And one thing that we should mention as well is that if you do make it into that upper final alongside Scorpions, you are guaranteed to go through to LAN, whether it's in first seed by winning that game or in, well, potentially still third seed going down into the lower final. But either way, you still go through LAN, so that's kind of a big pog moment. But on the other side of the coin, Cthulhu, Melbourne Matildas, North Sydney Sentinels, look at that gauntlet run that they have to make.
Yeah, that's going to be one hell of a run that I'm quite curious about to see how will that really work out, because we have at the moment two quite cool scenarios. One that if, say, Melbourne Matildas win today against the Sentinels, that's it. That's the whole Sentinels dynasty done and dusted. And whereas on the other hand, Sentinels would have to go through, like you highlighted, through quite a gauntlet to even make it to just the lower finals. And even then, if they lose there, that's it. That's GG. And looking at even outside of Melbourne Matildas, the rest of the teams that managed to make it into the playoffs are extremely potent and strong.
Indeed. I think it's going to be a really, really tough run for either of those two teams down in the lower bracket. Round one, but to be honest, even if you don't win this upper semi-final, I think any team that goes down into the lower bracket without it being in the lower final, which would be the LAN match, is actually going to have quite a tough run, because this season has been so competitive. It's very hard to say what results are going to happen, predict what results are going to happen. Either way, let's talk about our top 5 players for this season so far. JT has snuck his way up into first. Lightning Man still sticking around, and Russian also seems to sort of be coming back and finding a bit of his own form. Scorpions have been good. Scorpions deserve a couple of players inside of the top 5, I think. But a little bit surprising maybe to not see at least even one Panthers player here.
Yeah, look, I mean, with Panthers, it was a very interesting dynamic where, you would usually look at their scoreboards and it ends up being a fairly sort of even set of numbers. So you don't have a whole lot of those very big standout players. Like, for example, say, looking at Magic Shells as well, the man who was basically leading the All-Stars leaderboard for, I believe, 3, if not 4 weeks of the regular season. And he was basically the big standout because he was set up by his team to basically farm up some absolutely maddening damage. Same goes for Lightning Man. Same goes even for Russian. Whereas for Panthers, it always ends up being sort of a fairly even spread. But, well, apart from, I think it was the week 4 where Bales just went absolutely ballistic with his damage. But I'm somewhat with you, but at the same time, I understand why none of the Panthers players are on that All-Stars leaderboard.
Maybe a bit more of an effort by committee from the Panthers than some of the star power that we see from other teams. But let's talk about today's matches. The first one, obviously, we've touched on Action X and Panthers. Going to be a big one. Winner qualifies through to the LAN finals. And Matildas and Sentinels, well, they're basically just fighting for their lives at this point. They can't really be thinking about the grand scheme just yet, I don't think, Cthulhu, because they've got a long way to go before they get to that point. So as far as I'm concerned, game 1, big talking points, qual for LAN. If you win, that's awesome. Game 2, you're fighting for survival.
Yeah, that's basically all the baseline of both of those matches, which are also very, very much exciting because of there's still quite a fair bit of gravity to it. That's quite an interesting split of the the voting. Okay.
All I'm going to say is I can't wait to finally overtake Wargaming.
Yeah, right.
Because that's what's going to happen today.
Okay. Fair enough.
And I'm going to get 2 points in front of you as well, so I'm pretty happy about that.
Oh yeah. Well, look, I mean, all I'm going to say is there was already a few of the play days that you missed out on your prediction, so I'm still fairly confident in my picks. Look, I mean, looking at between Action X and Panthers, it is quite honestly a bit of a 50-50 for me because both teams have been showing some phenomenal turnout for them, but also both of the teams managed to show us the lowest of the lows in terms of just having everything and then losing everything. Whereas I look at the Sentinels versus Matildas. Look, Sentinels throughout their whole regular season did not impress me at all, and I am very much highly doubtful of their performance in the playoffs.
I kind of agree with that, but hey, look, it is Sentinels, so I can't really go too far past them. Now, tell me a little bit about Action X. You obviously predicted for Action X today, bearing in mind that they lost to Wolverines last week. Is that not a concern?
It's to a certain degree it is concerned, but I think the main problem with Action X was their hubris before against Wolverines, where I think they got a little bit too overconfident about some of the things. They got a little bit what's the right word there? A little bit negligent about some of their plays and strats. And seeing as Action X as well have been going through a bit of the calling switch up as well, if before it was CJ all the way, this season actually it's been, if not full job by Trax actually, given that CJ will not be present. If Action X do make it to the finals, CJ will not be present there. So, look, there's definitely a few interesting dot points that are worth mentioning that Action X had to go through quite a fair bit of the evolution. But in doing so, they actually ended up reinforcing themselves pretty well. They have a phenomenal addition in terms of Rowandy, who managed to keep up with the team pretty well. And as a matter of fact, as far as I heard and as far as I've seen, he managed to enhance that turnout for them. Overall, this has been by far one of the best seasons for Action X.
I think it has been indisputably the best season for Action X, as if we call it an organization. Obviously, they've gone through a lot of iterations since the very first season that they existed in. But this is definitely the best result that any Action X team has had thus far. Although, absolutely. I mean, I guess they could still finish in like potentially 4th, if I'm not mistaken, if they lose this and then lose their next game. So, I mean, at that point, maybe not. But it's certainly looking like it will be. Now, onto the Panthers. Again, obviously, one of those teams that I've been really high on since last season. They didn't really make too many roster changes. I've talked about that a lot. I've talked about the fact that I think that they're going to be a good team with the roster that they've got. Has it come together this season for the Panthers, do you think?
I want to say yes, because for Panthers, this has been, once again, also a great season where they were able to actually pull off some absolutely huge wins for them. And in terms of their overall cohesion, it was a really nice sort of turnout to really watch. And overall, I mean, some of the star players that you've been highlighting as well. Bales, for example, finally started, bringing in some of the heat. Crit, being as the newest introduction for the Panthers, has actually managed to gel extremely well with that roster. So overall, I gotta say, for Panthers, this has been one of the better seasons for quite a long while.
All right, let's look at the maps here quickly before we jump into map 1. Himmelsdorf, Tundra, and then Prokhorovka as the tiebreaker. Obviously Ghost Town as well. So, I mean, look, I think for me, I don't have too much to say here. I think Ghost Town's an interesting one. I've seen both teams sort of having some degrees of success on that map. Do we even get there? It is a best of 7, so you've got a little bit of extra time to play in this series, but getting to Ghost Town, 83% win rate for Action X on that map this season so far. That's going to be a tough one to beat, so I don't know. I'm feeling a little bit ambitious for the Panthers here, but look, we'll see. Let's find out. We jump onto Himmelsdorf. We'll think about Ghost Town in a little bit. And Panthers, look, they don't look too shabby on this map usually. So, what have they got cooking up in the lab?
Look, I think this could be a rather interesting setup. Once again, it's the double 1-1-3 from Action X that they've tried to introduce last week against Wolverines. Unfortunately, their setup did not particularly work out too well, but this is a whole different setup, actually. As a matter of fact, we're looking at a much more accelerated push by Action X, despite them being on the defense, but completely abandoning the 2 flag, which arguably will fire back at them because it will be now more so about the retake rather than just holding off the push. And the Panthers might actually be able to set a really good initial momentum here, I reckon, Jordan, because with Rowanty being quite isolated, with 1-1-3s making through quite far away, this could get very dicey very quickly. And I mean, you look at that, a 3 cap will be deadly, basically, here for Action X in the first round.
Doesn't look very good for Action X at all. Are they going to start their rotate early? It doesn't look like they've got the spider senses tingling, unfortunately. So the only information that they're going to get is as soon as Panthers get themselves on the cap, and all of a sudden, now you know you're a bit out of position. You've got a lot of scurrying to do. Luckily for Action X, it's only 2 players on the cap here for Panthers, so they don't have as much of that time crunch, that time pressure. But they are going to still have to get a bit of a wriggle on it. Well, at least for Action X, Twit is bleeding a bit of HP, so there's that small advantage.
Yeah. Well, Rowanty might be able to do something about that cap pressure.
Yeah, but he's going to drive into a crossfire if he does. That's the issue.
Oh, yeah. A bit of a problem, but surely the IS-4 should provide just about enough of the hold down position. But the fact that he's now about to be collapsed upon is not ideal. Him being isolated is not going to be good. So right now, that duo of the 1-1-3s need to do something. Either get rid of Twit or they need to go into the interception course. And it seems like the intercept is going to be the case. Although how long is that survival going to be the case is a completely different question.
Yeah, exactly. How long can Rowanty survive here, and how much more damage can he put down before he drops? He probably only gets 1 more shot out, and it looks like he's actually going to get a bit of backup here. So where is the rest of the Panthers lineup? Are they doing the damage as Action X tries to make their rotate? Certainly a lot of it getting chunked on through. Tracks will actually survive. And so all of a sudden, Action X have kind of turned this back on its head. Bales, I dare say, should be off reload fairly shortly, which is going to start to become a problem for Action X. But he's a bit out in no man's land right now, and in a 50B with not a lot of HP. Can he have the impact? Well, it does look like the Panthers are going to be okay here now, I would say. Cthulhu, as I see Super Conqueror, Madhouse, full HP, and that is a scary sign late in the game.
Absolutely so, yeah. On top of the fact that Bale's fully reloaded as well, yeah, this is already quite a unfortunate turnout. And yeah, look, for Action X, this is not a good start at all. Like I said, even in the past broadcast as well, I'm not too sure what was the play there from Action X. They seem to have gone for a few very unusual set of picks and in terms of their strats, and it backfired at them quite severely. So look, I'm going to be honest with you, Jordan. The first round is definitely far from being impressive here for me.
Yeah, Yeah, definitely. I mean, look, we can talk about that in a little bit when this round is over. I have some thoughts, but I want to see what Dongalord can do. I mean, he's in a 50B, he's full HP. 30 seconds for that cap timer is a big problem for him. I mean, if there was a minute left on the clock, maybe I'd give him a chance. But with 3 minutes, 45 seconds, I just don't think there's a world where Dongalord can really do anything here. Maybe just farm up a little bit of extra fantasy points for the Donga pickers. Are you a Donga picker? Do you like Donga?
I used to be a
You used to like Donga?
picker, but
You don't like it anymore?
I used to like. I don't like it anymore now.
Okay.
No.
Fair enough. Well, fair enough. I mean, that's a very solid victory for the Panthers. Now, what I was going to say is I don't really think like that's the kind of game that you can draw too many conclusions from, though, right? It looked pretty dominant for the Panthers. But it's one of those situations where ActionX, they set up, they have this default, whatever, they put their tanks in a certain position, and Panthers kind of do the one thing that's just going to make their life incredibly difficult. And sometimes, like, that rock, paper, scissors game is going to go the other way. So I think this is one of those cases where ActionX, if Panthers drive into them, they have a really good looking round, and we say, wow, but ActionX is looking sick to start the day off. Doesn't happen. They go in the opposite direction. Then it's ActionX, obviously, that have to rotate, and Panthers are looking pretty phenomenal out the gates. So I don't want to, like, draw too many conclusions from that game. I think ActionX is the kind of team that can still come back from something like that. We've got a longer series than normal as well, so they've got time to come back into it as well. So overall, well played by Panthers. Good adaptation from them. ActionX, I didn't necessarily mind what I saw from them. They were kind of between a rock and a hard place, right? They had to sort of try to make lemonade out of the lemons, and they nearly did, right? They did actually kind of cut off a couple of those Panthers tanks, and it looked okay for a moment, but ultimately, yeah, Panthers were just a little bit too established by that point. So, GG. Panthers look good.
Yeah.
Can't say too much to the negative for ActionX just yet.
Yeah, look, I kind of want to be with you on the same page, but generally speaking, in the recent days with ActionX, it's been a bit of a sort of an unfortunate turnout where if they sort of completely like lose out by like one big round, it ends up damaging the mental quite heavily, at least in terms of just how things were performing in the past few weeks. So I'm starting to slightly worry, I'll be honest, and that's where I think for ActionX as well, they will be getting quite worried. I mean, you're looking at some of the numbers, Lightning Man and Trax sitting on quite rather low numbers. Yet Rowandy and CJ and Donga did manage to pump out some decent numbers, but that was, I think, already at the sort of a post-mortem of the actual round itself. So, look, I'm not too sure what's really happening at the ActionX camp, because I remember the sort of week 4, week 3 ActionX, they looked quite promising. Strats were looking pretty good. The coordination was great, and all of a sudden, from there on out, I don't know what really happened in their camp. It just all started really falling apart. It started off with their loss versus Wolverines. Once again, it is the round number 1, so I'm waiting to see how things will really go. But on a defense, to push out this heavy and to go for such a late rotation, it just feels like just I think they outplayed themselves more so than their opponents.
So wait, you said that they changed up their calling structure a little bit, right? CJ's not calling.
Yeah, well, CJ has been barely calling as far as I'm aware, so it has been mostly Trax doing it. But it has been going on throughout the regular season as well. Right. So I'm not too sure what, like, if Trax just said, okay, I don't like this strat anymore, and we're just never gonna play it, because they had a pretty well set up Himmels previously. I mean, remembering the very first few weeks of Himmels, the double mouse, double E100, say an IS4, even the T57 heavy, that's it. You sorted. You set for the whole matchup. Whereas here we're now looking at the 113s, the 50Bs. All of a sudden we're back to the old meta with some rather unconventional experimentation, which just feels unnecessary.
All right, well, I have another question for you relating to that, but I don't think we've got time for it. I'll ask you after this round, and maybe the result of this round will kind of change your perspective on the answer as well. I won't forget it. If I do forget it, remind me. It's about CJ, okay? So you can
CJ.
remind me. But I'm pretty sure I'll remember. Anyway, let's see what Panthers can do to kick things off on their defensive side. Also looks like they want to play relatively aggressive toward the south, but not as much. They haven't committed as much as what Action X have. Action X, they had 4 tanks down south, nobody north, basically. But in this case, at least Panthers have kept that E100 up in the pillbox. And so, if Action X were to go to the 2 flag, it's a little bit more across the board from the Panthers.
Yeah, looking right now at the setup, IS7s once again make an appearance, courtesy of Bales. It has been an interesting as well thing to worth mention that IS7s sort of brought themselves back into the meta, where sort of it's an attempt to replace the M454s that were quite widely used last season. But now, I mean, I'm looking at this lineup. This is from Action X. This is a much more sort of conventional lineup. The W100s is good. IS4s slowly been falling out of the meta. Sort of they've much more situational nowadays. The accuracy on those tanks far from being great, to be honest. So yeah, look, I'm curious to see what is the actual game plan. Yeah, big damage with an HE shell is. Yeah.
I mean, doing any damage to an IS-7 hull down is a win as far as I'm concerned, so good on you, Rowendy. That's like maybe 1 fantasy point worth of damage. That's what matters.
True. Gotta farm up at least some fantasy points. I'm gonna be honest, at the moment, it's definitely a far more paced down sort of play from Action X. They're looking to sort of get themselves a little bit sort of coverage all over the place, but the problem being is that the moment Panthers decide to basically do what Matildas did and basically just sort of go for a full pack push, they are able to basically dislocate any of the positions that Action X have set up. Specifically the castle one with CJ already taking the shot from Twit.
Yeah, that's not a bad start for the Panthers. Information as to where CJ is. Twit doesn't spot anyone else going down the hill either, so they have a pretty good idea that, well, CJ is kind of isolated, and obviously with the information now coming through, they know all 4 other members are working their way up Banana. I think Panthers have a great understanding of what Action X is looking to achieve on this attacking side, and they should be able to respond pretty quickly.
Exactly that. It's basically now a ticking time bomb, really. They need to cross around. They can't really waffle about. They should have really crossed on full speed because right now Lightning Man, yep, exposed. It's a miracle that he didn't get any damage. They walk away with only 1 shot worth of damage, which is arguably one of the best case scenarios. But the fact that Rowandy and Trax are still yet to cross and Rowandy starting to bleed damage even before that big cross, it is a problem. It is a huge, huge problem. And right now Action X are going into the next brawl with... not a whole lot of possibilities. Trax needs to join up with Rowandy because, again, 1 gun versus 2 guns, I mean, you do the maths. It's basically elementary school maths, and yeah, it's already not looking particularly too great.
Crit looks like he's going to be in a great position here as well, and he's even backed up as well by Bales, so these 2 are going to really be a thorn in the side of Action X, who are starting to try and put a little bit of damage in onto that cap.
Is that even workable? Yeah, surely that boost is quite difficult to really pull off in an IS-7. But yeah, working on the cap is going to be great. Rowandy is in a bit of a awkward position. Actually, no, correction on that. He's actually in a really good side scraping position. Should be able to make it work. Right now, 2 100s. It's a bit of an interesting brawl where Action X are actually bleeding quite a fair bit of HP.
Oh, they're pushing. This
seems like... Whoa.
No.
Okay, it's a push out. What is that? What?
You can't cross
Why are
that
you
when
going
Madhouse
to
and
crossfire?
Bales are watching that angle. Oh, dear. I mean, look, JS and Twit, they're giving ground. They are going to eventually have to deal with a 3-on-2, at least for a moment. But just look at how much free bleed Panthers are getting on the way out here. I think Action X are absolutely cooked. And Bales is also rotated across to assist. It is just looking so damn over. Cthulhu, there are many questions I think you have at the moment. And I will say I don't have the answer to them.
Yeah, look, I'm absolutely lost for words here, Jordan. I might be on copium and hopium. I don't even know anymore. But I was expecting, an actually, well coordinated few sets of games. But right now, Action X But honestly, you change the name from Action X to Wolverines, I would probably believe it as well. With the way how Panthers are just absolutely outclassing them at the moment. And yep, what was a pretty decent map for Action X before, Himmelsdorf now became the absolute nightmare.
Certainly. 1 minute left on the clock here for Rowendi, but insta reset out there from Madhouse, and I think we all know which way this one is going. Rowendi is, I would say, resigned to his fate as well in that IS-4. Can't get any damage back. And, well, he's not long for this world. Who is going to get the killing blow? JS. Not quite. They're all not high enough. So it'll be critical in the end. And Panthers go up 2-0 to kick off the series. That is not a great sign for Action X.
Not at all. Not at all. This is by far one of the worst signs, as a matter of fact, for Action X. Despite the fact that, mind you, Himmels was Panthers' pick. So, per se, we could chalk it up to the fact that, hey, Panthers basically wanted to play it this way. They knew exactly what were X cooking up in the kitchen and basically said, okay, we're just going to, outstrat them. And they did. That was a phenomenal setup, the way how they've done. Yeah, look, I'm not too sure what was that even response from Action X. Matter of fact, what was your question, Jordan? The one that you wanted to ask.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's interesting given what CJ suffered in that last round. But I wanted to ask you, because if you said CJ's not going to play in the LAN final regardless, if obviously Action X does make it, would you like to see CJ in the roster today with that in mind? Because I think in my mind, personally, and this is nothing against CJ, I've had him in my fantasy team pretty much all season long. But if I know he's not playing in the LAN final, whether we qualify or if we qualify, I don't think I want him in the roster tonight. I want to be practicing with the 5 that we're going to have at LAN. Or am I wrong?
Yeah, that's a very valid question, actually. Yeah, I'd absolutely agree with you here. The problem being is that because of how basically core CJ became to Action X, where he almost was that sole leader, he almost needs to be in there in one shape or the other. Maybe not as a player, and just at least on the in the same VC, just talking and getting the players all sort of calmed down and sort of ready to keep on playing. But yeah, you're absolutely correct. The roster of Action X should have been practicing and basically preparing to play without CJ in one shape or the other, and I think that partially could be the reason, but on top of that as well, gotta also remember, in terms of just the character itself, for example, for players like Dongalore, they can, he can get quite emotional about certain turnouts. So I think here the key play for Action X is not even at this point about outsmarting their opponents. Do not let the tilt sink in, because the moment that happens, that's it. That's GG. You're looking at, say, from next map onwards, if things continue to keep on being as wonky as they are, that's basically it. That's GG. Because there is no absolute way that if they go on full tilt and continue playing, that they will be able to catch any sort of wins. Which, look, I mean, it's unfortunate for them, but the reality being that for Action X, I believe that's almost like the second season that they are starting to have this sort of a trend where they have that start/middle season looking promising, like extremely phenomenally good, and you're starting to say, oh yes, Action X to LAN, Action X to top of the playoffs, and then comes the end of the season/playoffs, and it's a complete fall off. I don't know whether it's the nerves, whether it's something else, whether it's unfortunate timing, but it's been quite a drastic change in performance, and we're talking from good to bad.
I mean, I think the one thing that we do have to remember, though, at the very least, is that this is the upper bracket. So even if they were to lose today, they do still have one more chance. They'll go down to the lower bracket to face the winner of our lower bracket match later on. But, I mean, yeah, it definitely would be a pretty tilting 3 weeks, right? They go from potentially looking like they should be first at the end of the season to missing out by 1 point, to then losing their first playoffs game and then going into the lower bracket, and who knows by that point how your mental is faring. Look, Action X, I think maybe we look to Tundra and say they are going to have to pick the pace up a little bit here. Do we get to see a 2-0 maybe from Action X to get them back into this series? How do Panthers fare on this map? And I think at this point, if Panthers even get a 1-1, I'm looking at this series probably being over on Ghost Town.
See, I'm of the opinion that if we at least see a 1-1 here, Ghost Town could still be the solution for Action X, albeit it will be a very, very dire one. But yeah, Tundra absolutely needs to be a dominant map from Action X. They need to show a whole lot of promise. So far, I'm looking at the setups. Yep, looks so far everything fairly standard. Even the BZ75, as I was actually after the last week explained that it's actually being played more so as a replacement as well for the M454 because of the mobility from the rocket boosters. The damage alpha is even nicer than the M454, plus the lower profile does allow a little bit more. But yep, you still do have a very troll turret that if you start firing heat at it, well, it'll get end rather quickly.
Yeah, it's a good shot from JS. Already some big damage onto Trax. And JS is definitely looking for more. He's not really shying away from poking up and down that ridge. Do have Rowendy spotted. But aside from that, not a whole lot of information going on here for the Panthers. Bale's just spotting on the southern side of the map to see if there's going to be any push out from that 2 flag from the defense. But it doesn't look like it's going to happen, so maybe he'll start to rotate off and join the rest of the squad on the northern side, if that's to be where the Panthers end up committing.
It is interesting to see that you look at Tundra this season, it's all been converted to quite rather heavy tanks. You don't really see any more of the CSs, no bat chats, none of that nonsense. It's all about as heavy as it can possibly be whilst continuing to be able to provide a good amount of DPM.
Don't you think that's the game in general, though? Like, isn't that every single map?
Yeah, but you look at something like even Prokhorovka, you look at even occasional sort of Ghost Town, you would be able to still find a place for a medium tank play where it would be sort of playing that pseudo spotting role. Whereas on maps like Tundra, it is no longer the case. It's just the landscape and the way how the meta currently plays, it doesn't allow you to have as much flexibility and as much of the sort of ability to play because everyone sort of shifted towards that just chunkiness and HP, and say your average CS wouldn't really be able to provide that same HP buffer. Even if you do end up pinning each one of your shots, you'll end 10-15 shots. It's still not enough.
All right, well, Panthers have rotated off the northern side. They've just left JS up there to, worry about his own devices. Is this going to be a river push? I haven't seen a huge amount of Tundra this season, and obviously I've been in and out, but I don't recall seeing a lot of river pushes on this map, basically ever.
Yeah, this would be the first time for the river push to actually happen, which I'm actually quite curious to see how will that really work out, because it's either needs to be a collapse onto JS right now, or Lightning Man gets overrun, and that is basically GG for this round.
Well, it does look like Lightning Man's going to be the focus of attention. Twit, Bales, Crit, Mad, all making their way through the river, and no one is spotting them. I mean, sure, Trax is going to be able to assist, maybe, and Rowendy can get on a bit of a push, potentially, to cause some issues for JS, but I think Lightning Man is going to be in real trouble in a second here.
Yep, absolutely. No, Lightning Man is in a lot of trouble and about to be in a world of pain as well. There comes the welcoming party, one could say, and yeah, right now, the push is going to be a little bit more delayed, courtesy of that BZ, so at the moment, yeah, look, Lightning Man is not for long in this world.
No, indeed. I mean, he isn't a super conk, so at least he'll be able to give as good as he's getting at this point, but he's not going to last too much longer. He might get one more off his lucky, but yeah, Twit has it done. And Panthers have opened the floodgates, potentially. It is a 1-for-1 at the very least. And good focus fire from Action X to take down the Super Conk on the other side of the field. Crit obviously still going to be a factor here in his Super Conk, but he's being chunked down and bullied out by the VZ55s. He's in a 2-on-1. So actually, the Panthers have to get a bit of work done on the other side of the map, and it seems they are doing a good job of that. Trax definitely under the pressure here from Bales. Good shots into the back of the BZ75. Rowendy also suffering quite a big HP loss. And in all that meanwhile, it's taking a long time for Crit to go down.
Yeah, not ideal situation here, really, Jordan. And yeah, with Rowendy falling as well, Trax is not for long either. I'm not too sure how much will the BZs be able to really rather the VZs will be able to really pump out the damage, and how long will the BZ stay. But surprisingly enough, actually Bales does fall before Trax, so we actually into the tank advantage for Action X.
Yeah, I wonder if Bales maybe missed a shot, bounced a shot in all of that. We obviously didn't really get to see that fight in the POV, but Trax being able to win it does really shift the result of this game potentially. Not only is he obviously an extra tank in the game, but he is kind of that flanking angle as well that Panthers now have to really worry about. And that's going to relieve some of that pressure off the VZ55s, give them time to reload. And actually, even though Trax is probably going to go down here, if he can even get himself one more shot out, that'll definitely open the shots up for the VZ55s. Fortunately, he's not able to pen, maybe not even able to connect onto Twit. And so we're back to the 2-on-2, and from here, with the knowledge that the VZ55s can't completely clip out Twit and JS, both of them, you might still give the benefit of the doubt here to Panthers.
Panthers have the perfect setup, quite actually here, because with the Minotaur of GS, even in the half hull down position, the turret is basically impenetrable against the VZs. As long as basically JS is able to protect Twit, I think this should be fine. But yeah, the IS-7 being a quite trollish tank as well in terms of its accuracy, there's still a world where the delay could happen. Donga needs to just basically reset the cap. 18 seconds to do it, 2 more shots. CJ is very much disconnected from, so it is just a one-man job, and the reset is there, but at a very high expense. Oh no, CJ doesn't have the shot.
It doesn't matter. They've got the reset there from Dongalord, so the round is over as long as CJ can survive, and I think at this point we probably can make the gamble that that is going to occur. So Panthers, unfortunately for them, will be very disappointed by the result there, and I think a lot of that really does come down to that Bales versus Trax engagement going the way of Trax. And in the end, yeah, absolutely, they'll get Dongalord, but that's about as good as it's going to get, unfortunately, for Panthers. So, Action X on the defense, going to win by default.
By playing by time, look, yeah, that works out quite rather nicely here for Action X to get them back into the overall swing of things. But look, yeah, I mean, you're looking at the player cameras, it's not yet, full satisfaction from all of that at all. They fully realizing that, Himmelsdorf would have been also at least a map that they could have gone 1-1, if not for some of the shenanigans that they pulled out. And look, going into the second round of Tundra, they still need to win it. I definitely have to say a 2-0 is a necessity, a need, really, to be able to keep them afloat, despite the fact that I still have quite good faith in their Ghost Town performance.
Sorry, I'm just getting attacked by a dog right now. I don't know if you have a puppy, but I do, and he's doing things. Look, what were you saying? Obviously, 2-0. I think, yeah, I agree. Obviously, quite important for Action X to get that here on Tundra. What I also think is, like, you look at those 2 games on Himmelsdorf, and you'd have to say for Panthers, they look pretty damn convincing. Whereas this win on Tundra, it's like, okay, yeah, I mean, it's a good win for Action X. They didn't really look like they would lose it once it went into the 2v2, but it's still kind of going down to the wire. And again, I don't know if we'll see it maybe on the replays. What happened in that engagement between Bales and Trax? How much of a difference did that end up making? Like, did Bales bounce a shot, potentially?
There were a couple of shots that I think I spotted from Bales missing, even on Rowandy as well. So that took a little bit more time to get rid of the Rowandy's tank. And then, yeah, I would imagine that BZ75 being the trollish tank that it is in terms of the armor profile, I would imagine against APCI, I would have probably bounced a few more shots as well. So, yeah, look, definitely not the most ideal turnout there for Panthers. And a whole lot of those games, actually, this season were about those sort of 1-2 more extra shots, and that was basically it. So yeah, same goes here. Though for Action X, obviously not as decisive of a victory as they probably would have wanted.
Yeah, bit of a weird one in the end. Trax, he blocks 490, so I mean, you can probably make the guess that that was from Bales' IS-7. 10, 20 blocked by Donga and Rowandy. I mean, I think looking at this, really, it's just a fair amount of shots not penning from the Panthers that makes actually quite a big difference. Let's have a look here on the replay and see if that helps us unearth anything. Started really well for the Panthers with that free shot from JS onto Trax. And you look at that and you think, great, fantastic start. Love to see it. Setup looked pretty good from the Panthers as well. The collapse onto Lightning Man. Where did it all go wrong for Panthers? Because it really looks like at this point, you freeze frame this and you're saying Panthers is going to win this.
Yeah. Look, I did just actually watch back the stream as well. Funnily enough, yeah, so Bales did bounce, I think, at least one of the shots on Trax, which allowed Trax to basically get 2 high rolls on him. And that was basically the wrap-up for Bales there, because I think the matchup, or rather the game started, or rather, sorry, the duel started at around 1200 HP for Bales, and then one missed shot allowed Trax to sink in 1 extra, and that was basically it, really. And I mean, looking at the damage profile as well for the BZ-75, that gun packs 650 alpha. So you're pumping out 650 alpha at quite a fairly competitive rating as well. So against Bales' IS-7, that did not really leave a whole lot of room for error there.
Yeah, can't really be affording that kind of a mishap for the Panthers if they want to go through to the finals. But look, they've still got themselves in a pretty good position here. Still up 2-1. Moving on to the defensive Tundra. They can equalize 1 apiece on this map. They've still got a very hefty lead.
Yeah, that's true. There's still going to be quite a fair bit of it, but look, now we're getting yet another reiteration of the lineup for Action X, with the BZ-75s being now doubled up. So we're looking for the mobility, this time from Romedy and Trax. I'm curious to see how that will really go. And then Donga to introduce the Cax. But this one is a sniping Cax in a similar way how they used to be, you know, an STB, a Batchat, or a CS playing around that similar position, but this time without any extra quirks. Is just nice sort of, you shoot, you reload, sort of, and keep on going. And Cax does provide a little bit more of a hold down capabilities. The problem now being is that early bleed is still going to be quite costly here for Action X.
Look, I think if you're a team that's named after a tank, it is almost mandatory to pick that tank at some point. So
That's
glad
true.
to see it. Just
Would
waiting
love
for
to see that.
Scorpions to pick a
Ooh.
Scorpion, you know? Like, come on, guys. What are you doing?
True. Well, at the moment, actually, this push is actually working out rather nicely
Mad's
here.
getting
At least being able to
farmed.
split. Yeah, Madhouse getting farmed rather nicely. The timing as well from Dongalord should be just about perfect to actually get the crossfire into JS and critical, which would be quite great to see as well, given that JS has been on the high ground before and was actually in a nice and farmable position.
Wait, what is
this-
going on? What is actually
yeah,
going
this
on
is-
right now?
This is a bit quite chaotic here, but what Critical is actually doing is moving CJ as far away as possible from the matchup. So even if Crit does fall, this is the perfect opportunity to just delay CJ's rotation back, and this should allow Panthers to basically be able to just go and play for numbers.
He's also kind
Why
of
is Rowendy
delaying
following
Rowendy.
up?
Yeah, like Rowendy is wasting a lot of time right here. That has potentially given Panthers an in back into this round. Now Madhouse has been left high and dry, but Bales is ready to farm. Super Conk in tow. JS will be the focus of fire, but again, that means you're not looking at the Super
Ooh.
Conqueror. Good ram from Rowendy. But can Bales win this 1v2? You'd have to say so, right? Super Conk
Holy.
against the BZ-75. I mean, the BZ-75 certainly seems to be his arch nemesis at this point, but IS-7 coming across as well for that flank. It's really hanging in the balance right here. Damage is quite equal. Panthers have got the numbers advantage now.
Yeah, they have the numbers advantage, but Rowendy being farmed by Twit is not particularly ideal. CJ being low on HP as it is not good either. The one saving grace right now is the fact that Dongalord is quite high on HP. That double trouble from Rowendy and CJ is also quite good, so this is looking much better. But the problem being, well, I was about to say that Twit was quite high HP, but that is no longer the case.
Oh my.
This is now what I was expecting from Action X. That share of the HP has been great. They managed to really nail the performance on that one.
All right, well, now it starts to get a little bit interesting, right? That one actually looks a little bit better from Action X. I would say pretty messy, actually, on both sides. It seemed like to me.
Oh, yeah.
Neither team really knew what the other team was doing, and sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. Mad got really farmed at the start, and then Panthers somehow get it back into a position where it looks like maybe doable, but Action X salvage, they keep it alive. So, I mean, I guess it looks like we're going the distance in this series now, right? Ghost Town, I looked at it on paper. It seems like a pretty decent map for both of these teams. Maybe we can expect a 1-1 there. That's why I was saying, right? I think Tundra, if you get a 1-1 here for Panthers, probably okay to get it over the line on Ghost Town. But now, I'm not even sure. Like, I think at this point, maybe we're thinking about Prokhorovka as that tiebreaker map.
Yeah, look, I'm quite keen to see Prokhorovka here between Panthers and Action X, because from Panthers we actually got to see some pretty decent performance on Prokhorovka, despite the fact that ultimately it was thrown previously when they played against Scorpions in favor of Scorpions. But the coordination that Panthers were able to demonstrate there was actually quite formidable, so I'm quite curious to see how will that really work out. Overall, though, for Action X, yeah, this is a good return to form from them, but they're far from being out of this yet. Matter of fact, they'd only just equalized basically the whole scoreline. So for us now to go into what Ghost Town and then Proc, yeah, look, I'm genuinely quite curious, because remembering some of the absolutely outrageous turnouts that Action X were able to pull out on Ghost Town, they might still be in the running for that land spot.
Oh, I mean, both teams obviously definitely looking forward to making their way through to land. 4.7k damage there from CJ in that round, and this kind of ties back into that conversation we were having, right? How as Action X are you using CJ when you know if you get to the land, you're not going to be able to rely on that 4.7k damage from the IS-7. That's going to be someone else playing in that tank. Are they able to perform to the same level as CJ? Probably hard to say yes at this point, obviously, given he's one of the better performers for the season, but maybe there's a method to the madness, right? Maybe you look at it and say, okay, well, we play CJ this week. He helps us qualify to land, guaranteed, if we make it through to that game against Scorpions next week. We drop CJ for next week, because whether we win against Scorpions or not, we go to LAN, and we try to practice with our LAN 5. Maybe there's a debate to be had there, but even then, going into that game against Scorpions, I think you look at that and say, well, I mean, if we just win this game, then we're guaranteed grand final, so we've got to play our strongest 5. So it's a debate you can have back and forth. I'm kind of interested to pick their brain if Action X does win this, and we get to have an interview with them, what they think about all of that. But obviously, they'd have to win that first.
Absolutely. Yeah, they still need to wrap up this matchup to even be secured for the spot at LAN, whether it's, you know, lower bracket finals or the grand finals. But overall, look, I'm curious. I'm curious so far about what is actually going on in the AX camp, because obviously would have been chalked up as an absolute tilter of a Himmelsdorf to quite a, all things considered, quite a decent return to form on Tundra, despite an extremely messy first round. But now going into Ghost Town, I'm wondering if Action X still can keep up their composure, or whether we are going to start seeing some of the cracks, because for them and and Panthers, both teams were able to show some rather curious setups, but both of those setups were able to actually work out fairly well. So as surprising as it was.
All right. This is going to be an interesting one. You talked about the game sort of trending towards being a little bit heavier, but here for Action X, right? CS63 and Centurion Action X taken in the same game. On Ghost Town, Panthers have gone the complete opposite direction by leaning about as heavily as you would expect to see on this map. So Panthers are really going to be committed to the town. Action X going to try to control the outskirts with those two mediums.
I'm not particularly too sold. I did criticize it before, the double medium pick. It generally feels a little bit wonky, purely for the fact that you have to really put some mileage onto those mediums to be able to really get a good performance out of them. In terms of Cax specifically, it is a tank that after some of the recent buffs, it is phenomenal. It is great to see. It's great to watch it perform. And the DPM on that is absolutely monstrous. Whereas you look at CS63, it's slowly starting to phase out of its sort of meta. It is becoming much more of a sort of a niche tank, at least from what I got to watch. But in this situation, as funny as it sounds, CJ, well, until he took that initial shot and and put himself into a crossfire, he would have been actually able to contest with just the turret. But because he exposed his hull to the side as well, that meant that he's now basically he can be bullied by critical fairly easy.
He's really going to get bullied. You can already see Crit is starting to drive his way up that hill and push CJ off the line. And of course, Action X now also have bigger fish to fry, bigger problems to deal with. 50B of Bales does still have one shot, but now on reload. Even regardless of that fact, this fight is looking like it's going phenomenally for the Panthers. Good aggro juggling. Initial shots go on to JS and Bales. They back up Madhouse and Twit now at the front. And Crit has already dealt with CJ in the Cax up on the other side of the map. This has gone from bad to worse for Action X. And it looks like Panthers will once again find the lead.
Absolutely so, yeah. Look, quite an unfortunate result for Trax as well, being set on fire. And yeah, again, I think this is the case that where Action X just ended up, I think, outsmarting themselves, really. The setup was great to, you know, put some coverage, but the fact that Panthers have been adapting that sort of pack play playstyle has been really showing its success really here against Action X's attempts to really be very much of a spread out sort of roster, being able to play for the map control. And if it was that sort of a spread play from Panthers as well, it would have been a good setup from Action X. Unfortunately, yeah, just too little amount of HP, too spread out, meaning that the overmatch was just too powerful.
Well, Donga, he might be able to kill Crit here before he goes down, as long as he doesn't ram him. But I think that's about as good as what Crit, or rather what Donga could have hoped for. Madhouse around the corner here. Can't land the shot, and Donga hits a nice little fadeaway. Obviously focusing on where he's shooting rather than where he's driving. But, I mean, the unfortunate thing is he doesn't really get out of here. And even if he does, somehow, there was no way he would be able to survive for 4 minutes and 20 seconds. So Panthers will secure the victory. And they go up 3-2. In a regular game, they would be winners in a tiebreaker. But we are playing a best of 7 today, so a little bit more to think about. They need to get to 4, and they win the second round of Ghost Town.
Oh, look, if Action X continue to go for those fairly light picks in terms of the HP pool, things might be fairly quickly concluded in favor of Panthers. The way how it's been so far, Panthers were really able to drive the narrative in their favor in a very dominating manner. I mean, you look at the rounds where Panthers are winning, they're absolutely outclassing Action X. You look at the rounds that Action X were able to win back on Tundra, it was by quite a much smaller margin. And I mean, even here, you look at that, yeah, Lerondi was able to farm up 4k. You look at Dongalord 3k, but then you look at the rest, still a fairly lackluster turnout. And the fact that, yeah, it was a very spread thin sort of setup from those tanks meant that the resources were extremely limited, and they needed to be in a much more passive and a much more hunkered down position where they wouldn't be overmatched as easy as they were by the Panthers. Whereas you look at even the way how Crit managed to play it out, you look at the damage numbers, it's once again all fairly in the same sort of vein, apart from, yeah, JS just being able to spearhead away with 3.4k on an E100 nonetheless as well.
Would you say you think that kind of comes down to just individual mishaps on the behalf of Action X?
I think it's partially the mishaps, partially just the overall setups. The CS63, if they wanted to play it, it needed to be there ready to back up those heavies, because receiving just with 3 heavies against what possibly could be a full 5-stack is near impossible. And with the fact that CJ overextended as well with the Action X, thinking that he was all clear in such early parts of the round, was also quite a heavy misplay, where those bushes were basically, well, that whole sightline was perfect to shoot through. And so if CJ didn't overextend, if he would have just held his position, didn't let Crit climb up, because at that like small ridgeline where Crit would have been able to climb, where you just start exposing yourself to the rest of the position, this is where you would have been perfectly fine. You load up heat, you able to shoot at the exposed lower plate of the IS-7. That's where you're able to farm up easily here as an Action X player. And instead, what ended up happening as well, that specifically, that where Critical knew exactly that even in just a trade game, he would be able to completely outplay his opponent. And from there on, it was all just a just an absolute fall apart, really, and not much really to be said apart from the fact that Action X just once again tried to big brain it, but in reality, the big brain didn't actually happen.
I mean, I guess it's kind of like when there's a hole in a balloon, right? It's very hard to sort of fix that, and that was
Patch
the
it
kind
up,
of
yeah.
situation for Action X, right? Once they lose the first member, lose the second member, there's not really much coming back from that, regardless of how well the remaining few do end up playing. So, again, another one of those rounds where it just looks like a little bit of a failure early in the round from Action X has kind of led them to having a really difficult time later on in the round, and just not too much that they can do about it. Does, in turn, obviously put Panthers on match point. This is also land point as well for them, so if they win this, they do go through to Fortress Sydney for the land final. Again, also means they have to play against Scorpions next week to determine what that seeding is going to look like going into the land final. But when all is said and done, obviously a pretty good situation for Panthers to be in, and Action X have got their backs against the wall.
Yeah, one last chance to really pull it all back. I'm not too sure what's really going to be the play. Once again, it's the Cax that is being the pick. I remember quite vividly as well, Action X introducing even that, I believe it was them that actually introduced double T57 heavies, which were actually working out spectacularly well on Ghost Town, seeing as a majority of the brawls back in regular season was centered around that 2 flag. So that would have been great to see, but that is not the case here for Action X. Instead, a fairly, well, old school-ish sort of line up, the 277s, the IS-4, the E100s, the Cax as well, by Dongalord this time, who actually managed to use the medium tank extremely well, so I'm quite curious to see how will that really work out. Whereas, well, for Panthers, yeah, it's a bit of a heavier lean towards the DPM with those with the S-Conk plus the Action X, but apart from that, it's all fairly just about, well, same, but slightly different.
Oh, bit awkward. Someone ran into a crane. Who was that? Trax.
It's Trax,
He's on his way.
Unfortunate.
Don't worry about it. Lucky no one was looking in that direction from Panthers.
I'm looking at this setup so far, Jordan. I'm going to be honest. I'm not yet too sure what to really make of it because, I mean, AX have the setup to spot that push for the 2 flag.
I'm just going to say, by the way, in no world does that crane stop a tank.
Oh, you know, yeah, that should have destroyed it. That should have been destroyed, like, easily, yeah. I'm with you on that one.
This is interesting, isn't it? Look at what Action X are doing. They're sending 2 277s down the 3 line. In theory, Bales has a great angle onto that, but I guess he doesn't want to really overcommit to it because Dongalord might be able to pepper some shots in there as well. But either way, he's spotted them out. Info's given. And I wonder where Action X goes from here, because how easy is it to get those 277s out from behind that hill without bleeding a lot of HP?
Without bleeding, I'm highly doubtful, because for Bales, yeah, he just needs to pre-aim and that's basically it. But what I'm thinking what it is being used for is to distract Panthers just about enough for Donga to sneak exactly where he is right now, because those rocks are blocking perfectly there. The moment Donga is able to get the shots early and get rid of Bales, then he has the perfect angle onto basically the whole the coverage of Panthers. That's that's JS exposed, that's Critical possibly exposed, that's possibly Twit as well if he decides to drive out as well. So that is an ambitious play, but the play that has a lot of potential for it to basically change the tide of the whole match.
Not a single point of damage done so far. 3 minutes bled off the clock by the Panthers. They won't be too disappointed to see that. But now Bales is going to have some problems. And he'll have to start giving up a bit of territory. Dongalord does get a freebie into the side of Bales, which gives him a pretty significant advantage in this 1v1.
Ooh.
But sharp shot from Bales does equalize the HP deficit, at least in that small engagement. The rest of the fight, though, is really going back and forth. JS cops a couple. The rest of the damage coming through from the Panthers is quite spread, and I mean, so far the trades have actually been pretty effective from Action X.
Yeah, exactly that. Good push so far between CJ and Lightning Man, but the problem being is that they're driving into an absolute crossfire, so they need to just push through, get themselves into a few more positions. Lightning Man should not be farmed as much as he is right now, but at least he's providing that extra cover for the rest of the team to really do some work. Fire as well on Critical is not going to be helping Panthers a whole heap, and so far, I mean, I'm looking even at Dongalord versus Bales. This is still an even-Steven sort of matchup.
It's a big fight to win, though. I think Bales just gets the reload a little bit faster than Dongalord right here. Does he get the shot? No, never mind. It was Dongalord that got it through, and he pens through the turret. That is the nail in the coffin. I was really hanging on for that 1v1, because if Bales wins, maybe there's still a chance for Panthers. Obviously, the brawl wasn't going very well for them, but if there was an extra cax, imagine that's Bales instead of Dongalord. You'd be looking at this and saying Panthers can win now. I just don't think that they can with Dongalord coming through as that reinforcement, and so maybe Adelaide Action X are able to hang on and take this one through to the tiebreaker. Madhouse with a 1v2. I mean, he is in a super conk, so let's not get too far ahead of ourselves here. If he can get like a snap onto Dongalord, bring it back to a 1v1, or even just take the fight to CJ, he will out DPM that IS-4 if he just takes this fight. But he needs to be able to isolate it into a 1v1.
Where's Donga? He needs to come around ASAP here. Good trades though by CJ, and that bounce shot can actually be quite deadly. Donga needs to join up here. He needs to come in and just, yeah, there it is. There's the finishing shots. Well played by Action X. That was actually still a good, a well-coordinated push, albeit it was quite a close one.
Yeah, very difficult for Madhouse to win that one. Theoretically still possible, definitely, but in the end, once it's a 2v1, really tough. And like I said again, imagine how different that could have been had Bales been able to win the 1v1. In the end, it obviously went the way of Dongalord, and so the Centurion Action X, I feel like, makes the big difference there. And Adelaide Action X, as a result, are able to survive and push us through to Prokhorovka. We did say, hey, there's a pretty good chance this one might go the distance after, I said after we got the 2-2. There you go. We're going to Prokhorovka. So, I mean, what a better result I don't think we could have had, to be honest, because, I mean, this season has been so tight. It would have felt a bit of an injustice not to have this be at least something like a 5-3, if not even a 5-4. And that's what we're going to get, a 5-4. And for one of these teams, obviously quite happy after going through to Prokhorovka and winning it. But for the other, lots to do coming through next week.
Absolutely. Look, yeah, I definitely was starting to get a little bit almost sad that after what was happening on originally on Himmels, things were looking to be a little bit more problematic, a little bit shorter on the lifespan of this matchup. But yeah, no, this has been absolutely a phenomenal turnout so far. I'm definitely looking forward to see how will Prokhorovka really work out, because with Panthers, I gotta say, I'm quite curious what sort of strat will they be able to pull out on Proc, because so far them being able to almost sort of, I don't want to say that adapt a Matilda's playstyle, because it's technically a lot of teams were able to really utilize it, but Matildas were the ones that really sort of managed to make it theirs, almost kind of like their own identity in certain cases. But having that sort of pack play that Panthers were able to really adapt for some of the scenarios has been a very deadly weapon to deal with for any other one of their opponents. And I think for Action X, they're only now starting to sort of figure it out, getting a decent sort of idea as to what needs to be done. And look for Prokhorovka. I mean, remembering last time that Panthers played against Scorpions, their focus fire to originally get rid of players like JT in the early stages of the round nearly were those sort of crippling blows to their opponents. So here, I mean, Action X need to be very wary about the positioning of their opponents, because if it is yet another collapse, that's going to be deadly.
I mean, once again, I got to ask that same question, right? CJ puts up another big game, over 4K, 95 fantasy points in that game. How does Action X deal with not having him in the roster if they make it to LAN? That is insane. He has been such a solid performer for Action X this entire season. Dare I say, maybe their most impactful player. I'm not sure. I haven't had a look back at the stats, but I know I've been obviously kind of like, it's almost like confirmation bias sometimes, right? Because I look at the players that I have in my fantasy roster all the time. I'm like, oh, he's doing really well tonight. But I do think CJ's had a really stellar season. And yeah, we'll see how things go. But a little bit more information coming through. Bales fired 12 shots, hit 8 and 5. So not a great conversion rate. Obviously very difficult in that kind of engagement to sort of be getting those pen shots through. But if even one more of those shots pens Cthulhu, that is the fight won and maybe the game won. Either way, we've got to turn our attention away from that and start thinking about what's going to happen on Prokhorovka. Action X did have the fastest attacking side. That was on Tundra, and so thus they have the tiebreak advantage. What would you choose? Would you choose defense?
To be quite honest, I'd say go for attack right now for Action X. The way how they've been able to handle their own attacks has been a much better sort of turnout comparative to what they've been putting out on the defense. Defense definitely felt like they were trying to sort of reinvent the wheel, which hasn't been really showing a whole lot. And to be honest, look, yeah, attack will be much needed here for them, albeit look, it is a proc. Technically, you can make a counter argument that defense is actually going to be much better, because on defense you can set up some of those, the Stridsman setups, even the IS-7s in those A0s position. I think specifically for proc, yeah, actually, the more I think about it, defense will be better, but overall attack has been much more fleshed out from AX.
Yeah. Well, defense the choice. So that's what Action X are going to hope for. And look, I mean, I don't know. Proc is an interesting one for me. I think there's definitely opportunities on the attack to find pretty convincing wins. I'm going to have a look at the stats while we're waiting. Just take a little bit of a peek at Prokhorovka. 42% on the attack, 57 on defense. So, yeah. I mean, pretty heavily defense-sided, but obviously not out of the realms of possibilities for the Panthers. And I guess they have no one to blame but themselves, right? Panthers, they've had 2 really close rounds. Both go the way of Action X. And that's that clutch factor, maybe, that they just couldn't quite get it over the line. That if they do end up going on to lose this series, look back at some of those games, look back at maybe individual shots that don't connect, don't pen. And I think that that's perhaps where the difference was made, not necessarily on Prokhorovka, because this series could have been wrapped up already.
Oh yeah, the series could have been very rapidly wrapped up by Panthers, given the momentum that they were able to find for themselves. But yeah, that's the one thing that I almost forgot to mention really before we even went into Ghost Town, is the fact that, yeah, even if Panthers would be able to score that first round of Ghost Town, it would not be over for them at all, because there has been a very noticeable trend for them where it's just things would go completely sideways at the worst possible time for them, and that seems to be making a recurrence once again. They had a really good start. They had a really good opportunity to shut down any sort of advancement from Action X back on Tundra, back on Ghost Town. Unfortunately, just, yeah, things didn't really pan out as much as they would have wanted it. And now going into the Prokhorovka, look, it's both teams really had their ups and downs on that map. So, look, I'd say arguably this is one of the best sort of decider maps, because both teams need to really work on their performances on this map, and this is where they will be tested in spades, honestly.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think if I was going to choose a decider map this season, I would probably go for Ghost Town. I think Ghost Town has been a fairly balanced map in terms of the results that we've seen. But Proc, it's not super imbalanced. It's not super one-sided. So I think this is fair enough. But yeah, very, very happy for Action X to be choosing defense. I think defense, obviously, with that always comes a bit of an inherent advantage. You feel a little bit more comfortable going into the defense. But Panthers, I mean, if they've got something to pull out, right, this is where you do it.
Yeah. Problem being is that really for Action X, they, in recent days, they've been attempting to sort of play defense almost like the offense, which can pose a lot of problems for them, because we've seen a lot of those really nice, good, active sort of defenses, which haven't really played out as much as some people would have wanted them, because sometimes, yeah, it's good to have that element of surprise, but when you're making it your whole, basically, strat identity, it becomes a very readable sort of setup, and yeah, that was quite unfortunate. And a double replay. Just production doing tracks dirty, even with a slow-mo.
Again, how does a crane stop a tank? I don't know. How heavy is the 277?
Quite heavy, quite chunky. Whilst you're looking up at the numbers as well, look, I mean, I gotta say, I'm quite excited. I'm quite excited for Proc. There's a few opportunities that Action X could really pull off. They could go for the you'll just brawl out in the middle. They could hold the 1-2 line with even an introduction of something like a CS63 or even a Batchat. And then back it up with the Stridsvan. You could go for the hill control. There's plethora of opportunities. Prokhorovka has been really evolving this season.
55 tons, I think, if
Oh
I'm reading
my.
that right, for the Object 277.
That's
So,
quite heavy, boy.
I don't know about you, but I'm not so sure that a crane is going to stop a 55-ton tank. But anyway, that's fine. Don't worry about it. We're on to Prokhorovka. And for Panthers, it's their opportunity to salvage the series. And for Action X, it's their chance to snipe it away at the 11th hour and go through to land. That is what's on the line. Basically, we boil it down to Prokhorovka. Winner of goes to land. Winner of also plays against Scorpions next week. And Bales has already eaten a big chunk of damage. That's a good start for Action X. Gives CJ a big advantage in the CS63 battle if it does come to it.
Exactly that. Full control of the hill as well means that there's a really nice elevated position that CJ could be utilizing, but the fact that there's no pressure over that middle ridge means that, well, that position is somewhat becoming fairly negligent, because now it's, well, the whole map is split by that railroad. And all of a sudden for Panthers, really, you look at it, they could bunch up, go for the one flag, and once again, they're forcing Action X to go for a retake. And this is where the question comes as to how quickly will Action X be able to really do this, given that they are at a, well, I was about to say at a health deficit. They were at a health deficit. But seeing as, you know, there's the CAGs, there's the CS63, there's the S-Conk, you have quite a fair bit of DPM to really flex with.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Panthers get themselves into an awkward spot. They are going to be dead very quickly. And Madhouse eats a freebie. Fair bit of bleed going on right now for Panthers. This is not a good start. They've also lost a huge amount of map control, with CJ being able to take all the southern side. And so obviously Panthers, they are kind of getting backed into a corner now. They're getting funneled through onto that one flag, which I don't think is going to be a massive concern for Action X, right? They've got 2 IS-7s to go and get those resets if need be. Tracks in the CACs. Probably going to be pretty handy in that department as well. And then, obviously, the CS63 of CJ can wrap through the southern side of the map. I think this is looking very bad for the Panthers. And they're just going to have to win it out in the brawl. They're just going to have to hit their shots and hope that Action X is a little bit sloppy. But you freeze frame right here, I'm probably saying Action X wins.
Actually, still for now, just holding my judgment of this, because whilst there is a good position, you look at the Critical, you look at Madhouse, both of them in those really nice hold down positions for the S-Kongs to be able to provide that crossfire to deter any pushes whatsoever. So any overextension just to reset the timer would mean that either Romandy or Trax are going to be bleeding HP rather heavily. If not one, it's going to be a double shot from the S-Kongs. Matter of fact, 1,700 damage overextension. All of a sudden, well, Panthers are looking very good in terms of the health pool.
Yeah, well, that definitely changes the situation a little bit, doesn't it? Roendi, he's bleeding so much HP. He's down to a one-shot, 20 seconds left. Who even gets the reset at this point? The IS-7 coming up in F5. You'd have to say it's going to have to be Dongalord, because as soon as Roendi peeks up over that ridge, he is going to be dead. And Dongalord, even for his troubles, gets the reset, but sacrifices a huge amount of HP.
Oh my.
And suddenly it has just slipped away from Action X. They have mishandled this one. 10 seconds left on that cap, and I just don't see where the reset is going to come from. Maybe the Cax, 4 seconds left. I'm not even sure he's got the angle. 2 seconds left. Panthers, they have capped out, and they will go through to the land final And they will also go through to play against Scorpions next week. It's an anti-climax almost in the first round of the upper bracket, Cthulhu. But Action X, they will look bitterly disappointed because they worked very hard to get that back to the tiebreaker. But it's Panthers that are going to land.
Exactly that. Look, a huge, huge win here for Panthers as they managed to finally close it all out. All clean, all nice and solid in terms of their performance. And look, something about those sort of snapshots there that just didn't end up working out for Action X as well. Oh, sorry, not the snapshots, freeze frames, really. But overall, I gotta say, look, well played. Well played by Panthers. It did look quite dire. You were absolutely correct. In terms of their setups, they were looking to originally take a very minuscule amount of land, but in terms of how they managed to set themselves up, the fact that they managed to keep those two S-Kongs behind the lines and have them in those very nice hold down positions where you can really fully flex that gun depression and hide even the cupola off the S-Kong, you are able to set up a absolutely ridiculously good firing line. To the point that, I mean, you saw the end result. Even with Bales being able to dedicate a few of the shots as well in there, and Rowan D for the first peak bled for 1,700 damage. I mean, what else can you say when you have this powerful of a setup? And it didn't even require a whole lot of damage. You look at that; it's all about the pressure.
You know, the worst part of it all is we get scanned for fantasy points. I mean, what is this? 1.3 points for Rowendi. Okay, fair enough. I guess he didn't really do too much in that game. EJ gets 16. That's a far cry from the near 100 he got in the last round. But I tell you what, yeah, I mean, that sucks for Action X.
It's a rough time.
And it's not a very pretty looking scoreboard either, is it? 28% pen rate from Lightning Man, 0% for Rowendi, 0% for Dongalord. I mean, Trax, he's got 100% pen rate, but he's only hit 20% of his shots, so... just across the board, really, really rough stuff for Action X and Panthers. Like we said, right? I mean, I think, again, at that freeze frame, you know, either team can win. I would say I made the argument, obviously, that Action X looked pretty good because they had all the map control. But I did say it, right? Panthers can win this. If Action X doesn't hit their shots, Panthers does. You know, that's what happened, right? Like, Panthers absolutely booked Rowendi as soon as he tried to go up and over that ridge. And the return fire from Action X just did not find its mark. So that's the way the cookie crumbles. And
exactly.
Panthers go through to the finals.
Look, it's still an exciting timeline right now. Seeing Panthers finally make it to land, this is a great time for them to shine as well. For Action X, look, it feels like a bit of a disappointing run from them, really, close to the conclusion of the regular season, where they had their first opportunity to make it to LAN, which was just beat Wolverines, and at that point they were looking pretty sharp. So overall things were looking rather promising. Then in comes the loss there. Then they have a very rough start during today's matchup on Himmelsdorf, and things definitely just didn't particularly work out at all. And things definitely didn't pan out too well.
Indeed. Well, obviously we have to start thinking about how that matchup is going to go next week. Panthers and Scorpions. Who do you think makes their way through in Seed 1? I mean, kind of hard to go past Scorpions right now, isn't it?
Yeah, look, Scorpions definitely look like still a very dominating force. Things definitely looking to go in their favor at the moment, but with the way how Panthers been evolving slowly but surely, things are still... look, they still have the opportunity to really bring it their way.
Yeah, maybe Panthers can clutch up. I don't know if it's more of an advantage or less of an advantage to have to play this matchup. Like, obviously now with the knowledge that Panthers have played this game and won, confidence going to be looking good. They're still obviously getting that match fitness in tow. Scorpions a week off. Do they come in next week a little bit sleepy? Look at Crit. He's pumped up. I think we use the same mouse as well. Goated mouse.
Nice.
Like it. Good on you. Either way, that's game 1 done and dusted. So I think at this point, I mean, obviously waiting to sort of get into an interview. I think we're going to have Madhouse if we're lucky. But game 1 or 2 out of the way. Feels a bit weird to only have 2 games, doesn't it? even if they are best of sevens. Although, like, when you get the full 7 maps, I tell you what, it goes for a while.
Oh yeah, it does go for quite a fair bit, and it is quite an endurance run. I'll have to definitely agree with you that. Yeah, look, both teams had the opportunity there. Unfortunately, yeah, only one could come out of this, the winner, and well, yeah, Panthers did manage to make the best out of that whole situation. I gotta say though, it has been a very entertaining though matchup. So I'm definitely looking forward to what could even the other matchup really bring for us.
Well, that may be a question that you can ask Madhouse because we've got him ready for the interview. Madhouse, congratulations. You've made it to LAN. I think this is the first time in all your years competing that you've made it to LAN, not as a caster.
No, I did make it in the Bulldogs. What was that,
Did you
season
play?
2? Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
embarrassing for me, isn't it?
Well, we lost on a tiebreaker loss in that one, though, so slightly
Tried a
worse.
bit of banter, take the L, that's fine.
Yeah.
You win this one, Madhouse. Hey, speaking of, you win tonight. How'd you go? I mean, was it pretty tense towards the back end there on Proc?
On Proc, we were completely petrified because we knew they would pick defense. Like, why wouldn't you? But we were really convinced it was going to be a Striv, it was going to be or a Batchat CVS on one line, and it was going to be like a hard camp on the one line, and we couldn't push the one. So we were trying to think of what we could possibly do. But once we saw the super conk where he was, out on the rails, we were like, oh, there's no on the one line. We can do this. And it's pretty easy from there on. We just had to make sure the I7 got punished when he goes for a reset. And from there on, it was pretty easy.
There we go. Yeah, look, I mean, well played overall. Do talk to me though about the whole overall sort of progression, how the whole matchup went, because you guys had quite a stellar startup on Himmelsdorf. Then sort of Tundra had a bit of a shakedown, and then Ghost Town was a bit of a back and forth. Was there any point during that whole matchup where you sort of started getting some of the doubts about the conclusion of it, or was it all just sort of take it at sort of round by round basis and just keep going?
After the Tundra games, it was pretty like, oh, could have won that one. And then the next one was another, we messed up. It was our fault. Like, clearly, we did something wrong. But once we got to that first win on Ghost Town, it was like, right, we're totally back in it. And, like, obviously it would have been nice to win that one, the defense. But once we were back on the tiebreaker, that's when the nerves really kicked in. Wasn't very stressful until then.
Okay. Well, obviously there's potentially some more stressful games ahead for you guys next week against Scorpions, and then obviously on LAN as well. That's a whole different ballgame, as you would know. But I do have another question for you, not relating to either of those, because I'm sure we'll be able to chat about them a little bit later on. Next matchup, what are your thoughts? I mean, we're obviously looking at Matildas and Sentinels. Are you leaning one way or another? Sentinels, is their time up?
I think Rainbow's going to really try in this game. I feel like the rest of the season, he's been like, oh, I'm over it. And now he's realized he's about to get knocked out. He's going to step it up.
Gonna fire up?
He's going to fire up, and he's going to at least win a round.
A round. All right. Well, we'll see. We'll see. Have you got anything else, Cthulhu, or should we let Madhouse
No,
go
that's it from me. Yeah, we'll go celebrate.
All right. Have fun, Madhouse. It's been a
See you
good
guys.
chat with you, and we'll see you at LAN.
See you at LAN.
See you at LAN. Madhouse going to party. Awesome stuff. Wow. There you go. That's game one done.
Yeah.
Didn't really feel like I don't know what I want to say here, because this was like such a close series, but it's only like one step, right? It's like, okay, that's nice. You know, you've won. You made it to LAN. It's a big achievement, but there's still so much more to talk about this season. There's still so much more to look forward to, and there's also still a lot for Panthers to do, right? They have to go into that match against Scorpions. Whether they win it, whether they lose it, they've still got more games to play. Maybe it's the grand final, maybe it's the lower final. I mean, they've really got to knuckle down in the coming weeks. It's going to be big few weeks for the Panthers.
Absolutely, yeah. Look, I think the way for us to look at it is the fact that right now for Panthers, this is a huge milestone that they've achieved. It's not the end of the trip, it's not the end of the whole run, but it is the first step to what could possibly be a big story for them, where they could really push it into the grand finals. There is certainly an opportunity for that, and yeah, look, from there on, the sky's the limit. Whereas sort of you look at Action X, they're far from being out of this. They still have the opportunity to make it. It is still going to be a much more difficult now timeline. But say you look at the matchup here, say the way how I'd look at it, you look at their matchup, if they end up getting matched against Matildas and Matildas win over Sentinels, this could still be a fairly possible situation here for Action X to just recover themselves, say, okay, whatever happened, we just discarded, keep on moving on. Against Sentinels, it will be a little bit more of a difficult sort of situation if Sentinels do end up pulling off the miracle and returning back to their previous form, albeit that's still yet to be sort of seen.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, I'll tell you what, it's time for us to take a break. We've got to get ready for Matildas and Sentinels. So, big game coming up. Who will be the first team eliminated from the playoffs here in ANZPL 2023 Split 1? Find out next.
Same
I got an extra pitch.
Oh my god, you're doing the sound. Hold up.
We all got the same brand.
Crit, join the team. Join the team. Crit, you got 3 minutes. What do we?
I got you.
They're crossing. Okay, I'm reloading. Guys, you need to come in. Magic, we gotta go forward.
Go.
Guys, can you try and focus us on Tureen at the back?
We can't.
Okay, guys,
We have to kill the guys in the
then do
down
it.
low.
Do it.
Critical bubbles. Go in bubbles. Come on, get in here. Good job. Get in here.
Yeah, coming.
Look, Romney should just fly out to Hawaii for a weekend.
Fiji is pretty good.
What the fuck is fringe footage? What? What? That looks like a ritual.
No, that's a. I think that was like a white protest.
A white protest?
Like the.
It's from a movie. Yeah, it's from a movie.
That's where it's from. I remember this image.
Oh god. Wait, oh my. Oh.
Bro,
Man, this gun trolled me.
I fat fingered A. Oh,
no.
yeah.
You drive off the cliff.
Yeah.
Fell off.
Oh no.
I fat fingered A. I went to press S to like
Why
slow
are you
down.
throwing
like,
CJ?
I don't know what's I fat fingered A. It's gone off, and I saw
Okay,
myself-
CJ's on the bench now.
CJ has a
CJ's on the
cry
bench.
about not making sure he plays and fucking tries to throw dude. Like, what the fuck?
Ay.
Are we?
Yep, together now.
Okay,
Together
go.
Together now. Go. Together now. Go. First shot on Lightning Man. Drive through.
Hang on,
Pass.
there's 113
Grab,
to
grab.
exposed.
Nice.
Nice.
I got one. Nice.
That was tracks that I got.
Yep. Flaming just
Flaming
stuck in there.
going,
Flaming just stuck in there. You're good. Keep going for Lightning Man. And Ravi.
Okay,
Nice.
resets are done. Don't worry about cap.
Okay.
Yep. Soul turn.
Yeah, I'm going to state that 113 so they're not paying attention.
Do you want me to run? I'll just run.
Yes. Yep. Go. Flaming go. Sorry. Soul go.
Trying.
My picture is covering me.
Please.
It isn't working. Whoa.
Yeah.
What is
that?
Look at those
What is that?
manly
What is that?
dad hands. Jesus Christ, look at the forearms.
Show us your sandals.
Look at the forearms.
Show us your
Jesus
sandals.
Christ.
Show us your sandals.
Hey yo, Cindy got that grid bed sheet, boys.
It's not
Look at
already
that shit.
Yeah.
Damn, look at that shit.
What's Cindy got? What's he got?
You got that grid bed sheet, bro. Yeah.
He's making grass on the fly.
Yeah, bro. Cindy over here and calculating and probabilities of winning on his bed sheets.
Put me back on stream. I'll down the entire jug of Chucky, bro.
I'm wearing pants with bananas on them. Do you guys want to see?
No. I'm wearing underwear with bananas on them. You want to see?
Actually, I want to see.
I've got a banana in my pants. Want to see?
Show it through. Show it through.
Yeah, what's up now?
I don't like that.
Can you sing us Poison again? Poison.
Return stop, you're making me and Del agree on things.
What's up?
Say psych right now. Say psych.
I'm reloading.
Down.
Someone kill Del. Someone kill Del.
I can kill Zell. 6 seconds.
Dal is very good at baiting, so I think he's the best player for the tank.
I'm the master baiter.
Reverse sweep time, boys. Here it
No,
comes.
off with that shit.
Oh, it's coming.
JT asking if we should play double autoloader, by the way.
Yeah, true.
Alright, dude. Like, what the
Yeah, just try and win. Just try and not be too. We probably win.
Alright. I'll think about it.
Yeah, if you go off the hill, he will stay on the hill.
Don't do
Oh,
it.
you're so dumb.
I went the wrong way. I went the wrong way. I went the wrong way.
If you've just given him the hill now, and then
No, Dal, don't do it.
your only chance was perma-tracking him.
You're so dumb.
Oh.
Yeah, baby.
But what does that do for you?
I don't know. I just wanted to do it on stream.
He has the
We have
hill
the
now.
low ground now. We've got the
And
low
you're an
ground.
attack. Yeah, just
Just
cap under him. Cap under him and he'll jump off.
You know what you've actually done? You've confused.
Just go come up the hill behind him.
No, yeah, now chase him.
Come up the hill behind him. Come up the hill behind him. Come up the hill behind him.
Alright.
You're knocking down obstacles, you moron.
No.
Up you go again. Do it again. Do it again. Do it again.
Let's go.
No, don't.
You're gonna die.
Don't. You're so stupid.
You're not gonna bait him. Just go back up again. Go back up again. Go down and go back up again. No, go down then go back up again.
Okay, okay.
Okay.
Is he gonna kill him?
Oh, alright.
Yeah.
No, just leave
Yeah,
it.
just leave him there.
Do not like that.
He wants to jump off.
Kind of proxy.
Don't even risk it.
Please don't.
I'm not risking it. Ah!
Do it again. Do it again.
You're getting in the hit, Dal. Good job.
He's preempting. Go on the other side. Go on the other side.
Other side.
Go on the other side. Go, 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 go. He's coming. Go, 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 go. He's gonna try to beat you there. You gotta get there before him. Quick, 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 quick.
He's
Yeah,
molding.
they drive down on his side.
Go, 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 go.
If I
Play
get
the
past
wind.
him, this is gonna be
Play
crazy.
the lighthouse. Play the lighthouse.
Go, 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 go.
Play the lighthouse.
Go, 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 go.
You crashed, you idiot.
You're so stupid.
So we're jumping on into it with Panthers of Matildas Sand River, a showdown that could really set the pace, especially going into the playoff stage of this competition.
2 more shots, and that is going to be a dangerous problem for Matildas.
But they did isolate Bales there, so Bubbles will actually get the kill before he likely will go down in just a moment. They have an advantage here where they can start to send those team shots in. And right now, Matildas are just egoing up on right now. This is going huge. Panthers may have let this one slip. They're down a player advantage. Madhouse copping some real punishment. Crit there in the back of Whippet is trying to finish him off. Coming in from the back. They need to finish Magic. They can isolate that fight. Crit might be able to turn it. JS in trouble. They can't. He can't get the shot off, and now it's Critical alone. Is there any way he can play this clock?
This is basically it. That's a GG. That's unfortunate though for Panthers that they are losing on the defense. Yeah, this is going to be a problem for Whippet and Magic Shells. They're not really long for this world either. And right now it's just a race for time. Ravioli, Bubbles, Joatora, they all need to make it ASAP and get the crossfire going before either one of the tanks goes down. It's a very quick finisher as well. Magic Shells is next on the hit list as well. And it is a very dire attempt to come back, as you already can see.
It's going to pump the shots into it. Magic Shell's still alive.
Oh.
And that could be a big difference maker. They lose Bubbles as well to follow it up. Not long after the fact, this Magic Shell's going down. Cthulhu, JS is beelining for him, no!
Here, but looking at the lineups, yeah, look, that is quite a heavy advantage already in terms of the health points. I mean, we're talking 15 versus 13k. Panthers will have a really nice buffer to really play around with.
And Magic Shell's out, JS soon to follow, so it's a 1-for-1 ultimately. Both teams, I mean, this has been a reasonably even affair. I think the moment the gap has started to widen, the Panthers now up by about 1600 HP. Joe hanging on with 15 HP in a dream. Last time he was run over. Ravioli's farmed up 3k. And there you go, Joatora's out of the equation, down to the 3 versus 3. And he might be on the flag, but that doesn't matter. Crit can't finish off Whippet. Oh, he just survives with 50 HP. Where's Madhouse? He's getting the reload off. This might slip away from them if they're not careful, but the shots need to connect here. It should. 1 HP, the low roll. Ravioli can't do it. Crit threads the needle. Ravioli is about to go down. One more shot and he's finished. Crit swings wide. Can't connect, unfortunately. But never mind. It's Twit to do it instead. And Matildas may have let this series slip. The dream that was the Matildas Magic season is falling around them. I mean, at one point, we thought they were going to be the ones to take first seed. He's going to get to it, but he's got 2 more tanks to fight. And, yeah, that's a pretty one-sided affair. If we go to a tiebreaker, though, if Wolverines can pull something spectacular out of the bag, that's where things start to get fun. To close out the play there, but right now we're jumping on into it. Ghost Town. It feels like a wet noodle fight, but really, it's just more posturing than anything, trying to figure out what the game plan is, even though that flag is 50-odd seconds away from being captured with just the single tank on the hill. But for the moment, the fact that the CJ's first to go down, somehow Wolverines find an advantage and keep all 5 guns in play. They might just won't be able to turn this one on its head, but they are down about 1,500 HP. They need to start getting those team shots in, and it is effectively a 3 versus 3 in the city itself. Lost to take it, a shot. Wendy swings, 382 damage. So not going to be quite in range for them to finish him off just yet.
They're happy to do it. I mean, minute 20, they can just play the time, and that is exactly what they're doing. They're happy to just keep it tame, keep it well, I say peaceful, but it's more so that they don't have to just, you know, full on outright rush and pull a Matildas. Oh man, I gotta say it's been a bit of a rough gig for Wolverines. Good to see though that they're still continuing to keep on applying that pressure, despite the fact that currently they are, I was about to say only 1k down, but the number very rapidly dropped.
Oh, this is just going from bad to worse. It's a rough gig. It is a rough gig for the Wolverines. Now down to the 2, and I think Action X is just going to mop this one up quite cleanly.
Dongalord right now with Ravi will need to be the big driving force here behind the repush. That's where they are starting their brawl. Interesting to see that the focus is coming out onto Flaming. That is still quite a chunky amount of HP, and Dongalord is already sub 1k HP. Wolverines, they might just have that round locked in their favor already. Look at the sheer health disadvantage.
Is overwhelmingly there for the Wolverines, so it would take some insanely bounced shots out of the entire Wolverines roster for this to go awry, and unfortunately for the Action X, it's not going to happen. They clear it up, they mop it up, and they should be able to just farm tracks and Lightning Man to boot. Wow, that's exactly what you're looking for.
Now it's the moment of truth. Where will Wolverines really play their cards? Because Trax needs to cross. This is the push. This is the time for the action.
Right now, the Wolverines need to collapse and commit to this fight and play for the overmatch, while Trax is not in the vicinity to help out. Ravi taking some big punishment, but so is Robin. Rack does come out to Lightning Man, but we'll get the repair off, and Robin looking to try and relocate. No, he's just going to stick here in the fight, and think things will fall to Dongalord.
The flank could be absolutely huge here from him. Lightning Man is completely clueless. CJ and Trax are completely clueless too. This could mean a lot of problems. AVP is looking to dart directly straight for the 113s to reset the timer. Minute remaining. This could be an absolute tragedy here in the making. 2 HP difference. Trax and CJ spotted. In comes the unload of the clip as well. This is just a dire time.
They need to stop Dongalord. If Saxon can stop him from chasing,
no time.
This is doable. They've turned this one around. Cthulhu!
They've done it.
Wolverines have denied first seed away from Action X here on Himmelsdorf. This is daylight robbery. With Saxon going down, Soltarian the last alive. Wolverines are going to force a tiebreaker. Dongalord, oh, he's getting farmed up.
No.
Dongalord's getting farmed. Cthulhu, the bat chat, the punishment machine that you're looking to pump out the damage is being farmed. He's going to get some shots back, and Donga goes down. So Robin, he's being shot at. He's going to be taken down in just a moment. CJ should fall first if they can get it. So Robin down, and it's immediately followed up. And the advantage is still there for the Wellington Wolverines. They can't collect Soltarian.
Welcome back on in. It's the ANZPL Split 1 playoffs. And of course, Cthulhu here with me. Mate, we're already catching strays. Who's going to be sending strays next? Is it going to be Matildas or is it going to be Sentinels? That's the big question. Who's getting knocked out of this season of ANZPL? In second last place. Okay, Wolverines, they're gone. Who cares? Now we're talking about Matildas. Now we're talking about Sentinels. Who's going to join them? What do you reckon?
Oh, look, I mean, I'm not too sure. I'll be absolutely honest, because I mean, we're already seeing my predictions. I've predicted for Matildas to win over Sentinels here, but I'm going into this with the mindset that for Matildas they need to be at their top performance, because they need to basically repeat their performance, their coordination and everything, like they did back in the very first 2 play days. That was absolutely spectacular. set up for Matildas, where they were able to really do their job properly. Whereas you look back at the Matildas later down the line, things started to get a little bit more complacent. So here they need to make sure that they are at their tippy top of their performance. Whereas for Sentinels, I mean, even Matt House highlighted, as soon as Rainbow, as soon as the rest of the team gets actually serious, they could still pose a great threat. And whilst this season I'm taking this at a very heavy grain of salt, because Sentinels just absolutely were not looking particularly too hot throughout the whole of the regular season, despite the fact that it's only 5 play days. I'm not too sure what to really expect out of the Sentinels. Same goes for the Matildas. I'm more so leaning at the probabilities here.
All right, well, let's just talk Matildas for a moment. Have you liked what you've seen from them this season? Because obviously this was kind of a new project, right? You've got Bowl, Whippet, they come through. We've seen a couple of those other players, right, as well, coming in from previous seasons. But I felt like, at least from my understanding, right, this was Bowl and Whippet kind of putting a team together, seeing what they could do. You got a couple of players through from the B League. Did you have much faith in Matildas going into the season, and did they live up to your expectations, or did they, maybe not quite impress you enough yet?
They've exceeded my expectations, actually, because I went into this, I look at it at the very beginning of the season. Well, you got Whippet, you got Bull, you got some of the veterans, and you got a whole bunch of B-League players as well coming into this. So I looked at this. Yeah, look, I think there is a potential, but what I was basically expecting is a sort of a Comets turnout for the Matildas. But the fact that they were able to come out swinging from day one, basically, against Sentinels and then Scorpions, and were able to pull out the performances that they did, was just absolutely otherworldly. And I will have to say they did end up setting a very high bar as well for the quality of their performance. The fact that, you had a good synergy where, you would have Ball as well getting amongst the whole team, where you would have, highlight players like Magic Shells, you would have even some of the returning players like Joe Atora, Bubbles as well being big highlight players. All of them had their whole, good understanding of how to coordinate their approaches, their attacks. And it has been great to watch it. And the problem being is that the moment they get a slight hint of doubt in themselves, that's where it all crumbles. And this is where I think there's going to be a big difference between themselves and Sentinels. Whereas because with Sentinels, they know how to really pull themselves back out of this tilt. Whereas with Matildas, even a slight crack could mean basically disaster.
All right, I'm picking up what you're putting down. The one thing that makes me make that face is Sentinels know how to get out of this tilt. And, I mean...
Exactly.
I would agree, or at least I would have agreed, if they would have turned this season around. But the fact of the matter is they didn't really. So, I mean, are they at that point? Like, are they the same team that we, in previous seasons, could say, yeah, look, it's Sentinels, different breed. When they get to playoffs, when the matches matter, blah, 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 whatever. Whatever storyline you want to come up with, Sentinels are sort of undefeatable, so to speak. Are they that same team this season?
Look, I think today is basically going to be the answer for this question, because I mean, you look at the Sentinels. Whenever Rainbow was not there, things were looking very dire for them. I believe it was Return that was doing the calling whenever Rainbow was not there. Which, I mean, it's still sort of work in progress, so we'll chalk it up to that. That is just sort of when you compare Rainbow's experience in calling and Returns, it's sort of two different sort of levels of it. But then you're looking at some of the decisions that they've made. I mean, you look at Safi, the one highlight player that I looked at, and in my mind, it's a great pickup. But the roles that he was being put on, say something like an IS, like a SCON, instead of being something more of a 50B, like any auto loader, felt a little bit unconventional. In terms of just how sort of the previous experience didn't really get applied to his stay at Sentinels. And then you'll sort of start looking at some of the setups. I mean, even this game against Scorpions, yes, per se, it didn't really matter for Sentinels a whole lot. They, for what it's worth, they really just needed to play it out, sort of, and that's it. They just needed to be there for the playday. But the problem being is that I think we're starting to reach the point where for Sentinels, Yeah, that was by the way, that was a phenomenal and very funny time to watch. But it was a very strange sort of turnout where I think they gotten a little bit too confident and too complacent during their regular season. And whilst yes, they made it to the playoffs, it was a very scrappy run.
Yeah. Look, at the end of the day, I think for me, I'm still kind of hanging on to the rose-tinted glasses here. When I look at Sentinels, they are still in my mind. Like, I don't think you can like do what they've done and not at least come into the following season and still have that be part of your reputation, right? We're not that far beyond Sentinels and the dominance that they had that we can forget about that. So that's kind of why I've given them the tick in my book. I've gone the way of Sentinels for this matchup. I just think it's hard to sort of imagine this group of players finishing 5th after finishing first 3 seasons. So that's where I sort of lean on this one. Obviously, Matildas, they have a chance today, but even though Sentinels have looked really shaky this season, in fact, might I say bad this season, we're in the playoffs. And look, I mean, they've been saying all season long, or maybe not all season long, but like in the last couple of weeks, oh, it doesn't really matter, playoffs, blah, 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 that's going to be our jam. And I'm prepared to get caught up in a little bit of that hype train. But obviously, there's going to be a little bit of egg on some faces if they don't manage to convert today.
Oh, yeah. I think we slowly starting to sort of go from, you know, the storyline of champions of ANZPL that are the Sentinels to now sort of them becoming that final boss, almost like that villain arc for Sentinels, where they're the ones that come into this as like the big bad guy that every team are targeting to sort of overcome. But is there enough sort of fuel in the tanks to really be able to overcome this absolute, well, now it feels like a mountain of a team. So look, whilst the Sentinels you're absolutely correct, they did have a very shaky run. Playoffs is where the nerves will really kick in, and I definitely think that this will be a big factor. That reason we haven't had as much success. Case in point, Matildas.
All right, well, here it is. It's time to see whether or not the Sentinels can stand and deliver in the playoffs as they have done so many times before, or is it all just empty words, Cthulhu? Is the bark bigger than the bite? We shall find out as we head on to Himmelsdorf. Matildas kick things off on the defense with a double 50B setup. And I gotta say, I'm not so sure how that's going to work going into what amounts to be a very, very heavy lineup from the Sentinels.
Well, I mean, you look at Matildas, you look at the fact that Whippet is a very core figure within that roster. He's been an avid enjoyer of the autoloaders in one shape or the other. So I am not as surprised to see the 50B to be present. The problem being is Ravioli's position here. Yep, that's perfectly farmable here by the return. Rather easily 740 damage, now 1,000 damage plus. This does put the return out of the equation, but right now this push needs to be very well coordinated. Magic Shells needs to start pushing up, and Ravioli needs to start pushing up. They need to start pressing because just the 250Bs and the 277 are not going to last long.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very interesting game of Himmelsdorf. It doesn't normally end up playing out like this, but hey, I suppose Matildas, they have potentially played into the hands of the Sentinels. Rainbow and Cindy not afraid. They're basically taking a 3-on-2 right now, but of course, Bol and Whippet both still on the reload. And this was my concern, right? Double 50B into such a heavy lineup from the Sentinels. How much work are you really going to be able to get done with 2 50Bs? Are you going to be able to clip someone out when you're shooting at IS-4s, you're shooting at a Mouse and E100.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Maybe your 50B is not quite as effective as what Returned is going to be able to bring to the table as just one member, you know, a bit of assistance to the brawl rather than this kind of float like a butterfly, sting like a bee kind of a setup that Matildas have got.
See, the way how I even look at it, we've seen a very fruitful season for the T57 heavies this split. Why not bring those? Because they actually present a huge amount of DPM that you can output there. With the quick clip reload, it is a great boot to any team. So replace the 250Bs. To heck with all the mobility. At this point, you go with a full pack mentality. You bring in those T57 heavies. You can do so much damage here. And now, whilst the scoreline is already basically leaning in favor of Sentinels, and they are looking to win out the Himmelsdorf, it definitely feels like a bit of a head scratcher because we've made so much progress during the regular season, only to revert back to basics during the playoffs.
Look, I mean, is that still something that can get salvaged for the Matildas, though? Good shots coming through there from Whippet. Ball in his 50B as well. Doing a bit of a number to Rainbow. Wouldn't want to bounce that final shot. Does get it through. So now it's a 2-on-4. And all of a sudden, maybe you're starting to think this one is doable for Sentinels. Or sorry, for Matildas. But the question is going to be, return. What is he going to be able to get done? Wymo is down to a one-shot. Whippet should die here. Oh, return can't quite catch him. These are crucial seconds as well, by the way, but eventually he does get it over the line. Now he has to finish off at least one more of these tanks with the next shot and then somehow get away. I think he's won it. I think Return wins this. There's no world where Joe Otora can catch him for 2 shots. Surely not. Return, you got to just turn left, mate. Oh, and he's just around the corner in time. 277. It's not the slowest of tanks, but it ain't no 50B. I'll tell you that, Cthulhu.
Yeah, that's basically just now a ring around the rosy, really, for 4 minutes. Would be a bit of a curious turnout. But yeah, look, for Return, he's happy to take... Oh, yeah. I was about to say, yeah, he's happy to take a shot, whereas Joe Otora does not get any more chances, and he needs to bounce 4 shots here to still be able to outplay his opponent, which is going to be quite a gargantuan effort as it is already. Ooh.
It's a ballsy choice from Joe to turn and to try to take that fight.
Yeah.
He will be aware that Returned, has changed up his position now. But the thing is, if Joe keeps running, maybe you can sort of think about, playing the time, do something like that. But as soon as you turn and you don't get the free shot, obviously it's pretty easy for Returned in the end. And so there you go, 1-0 for the Sentinels. Was actually a little bit closer than we thought. The 50Bs from Matildas did both survive quite deep into that game, and that's why it ended up being potentially a little bit problematic for Sentinels. But end of the day, yeah, a little bit more work done early on, and that's kind of the power of those non-autoloader tanks, like the single-shot tanks. They do just tend to outperform after the initial burst is dumped through. If you haven't killed someone, or if you haven't, in some way, shape, or form taken them out of the fight, yeah, you're going to start to lose on the DPM, and that more or less was the problem, I think, for Matildas, unfortunately.
Absolutely. And that's where I'm still of the opinion that T57 Heavies would have done still a much better job. Because for what it's worth, for all the intentions, for the same setup that Matildas brought in, those the American autoloaders would have done the very same job, but at a much better sort of damage output as well. Because you're only sitting at, about 20, if not 21 seconds of a reload. And to be able to output still the same 4 rounds, but you also have the opportunity to use the heat rounds. That is already quite a lot of ability to completely, say, we don't care about your mouses. Because with mouse front being able to be pinned so easily by any heat rounds, this would have meant that instead of constantly falling back for Joe Otora and the 250Bs, they would have been able to keep on pressing. They would have been able to actually keep on contesting those positions. Matter of fact, those 2 mouses wouldn't have actually stood a chance for a long while, really. But look, theory is all there. It's all great. Reality being, though, yeah, you are absolutely correct. Single 50Bs and then all of those single-shot tanks definitely ended up doing the absolute work. But, I mean, you look at the overall spread. I mean, Ravioli still did a phenomenal job, 4k damage. Whippet did still a pretty stellar job. Bolognese as well managed to make a pretty decent job as well with his 50B, with the situation that he's been dealt with. So, I mean, for all intents and purposes, this round could have gone still in favor of Matildas for 1 extra shot.
Yep. I mean, you look at it, right? The pen rates, obviously not quite up there across the board. But I suppose, are you expecting perfect pen rates when you're versing Mouse E100 IS4? Maybe not.
Not per se, no.
Either way, I mean, really. This was almost the perfect start for the Matildas, though. That's the crazy part about it. The only kind of issue was that Ravioli, Al Dente, he drove into Return right as Matildas are also springing their trap on the southern side. So, kind of negated some of the advantage they got.
Yeah, that initial position definitely. I can see what they were trying to do with that, but they were basically banking on zero presence at the castle. And I mean, the moment they saw the 50B, surely they would have expected that 50B to go to the castle. And but again, look, who am I to judge it? Regardless, though, still a solid effort, and definitely, yeah. If maybe if Ravioli just outright pushed up, like say to that G4 or G6 position, or rather, sorry, F4, F6 position, he probably would have been in a much more safer spot. But regardless, it is what it is. It is only the first round, so like we've said with the AX versus Panthers, whilst initial signs are certainly looking a little bit dire, but this one was a whole lot closely contested.
Yeah, well, let's see. Maybe with a turn of sides comes a turn in fortunes for the Matildas. I think, to be honest with you, Cthulhu, a 1-1 against Sentinels on Himmelsdorf would be a pretty respectable result, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
Anyone's probably getting bored hearing me talk about Sentinels on Himmelsdorf this season, but I think they're pretty good on it, is the TLDR. Double IS4, double Superconch, E100, very heavy again out from the Sentinels. Not really much of a surprise. That's been their go-to. And for the Matildas, this time, they have matched that approach.
Indeed. Definitely a much more safer sort of approach with the pig. Also a respectable choice in terms of 60 TP, although I'm not too sure how will the accuracy will look there. Yeah, on that sort of distance against Rainbow, but once again, a good idea to actually introduce that tank, because if at least one shot pins, that is going to be felt. That is going to be felt a whole lot by the IS4. So, decent idea. Interesting to see that no contention whatsoever from Sentinels, but the way how they set themselves up, they don't per se need any presence on the castle to negate any damage, and even for the Rainbow's position. It's still fairly workable. IS4 is, for what it's worth, it's still a great tank for these kind of situations where you just literally peek with like a part of your turret, and that's it. You just gather that information, that intel, and have a good position to sort of draw the fire as well to yourself.
Bit of a slower approach this time from Matildas. Except for maybe Whippet. He's driving pretty quick.
Better for Banana, looks like it, maybe. Could be the play. Is the pen going to happen? Because the top of that gun for the 6TP is a rather easily pennable position. Unfortunately, neither land. I mean, ideally, you're looking at this. Dell would be the perfect one to really collapse upon, because that's your DPM out of the equation if you're really able to get him out fairly quickly. But that would require for Jotor and Bolognese to not get spotted, meaning, yeah, none of that is really happening. So, yeah, for now, for Matildas, as weird as it sounds, they are in a bit of a stalemate and just looking to try to find the pressure points, but none of those pressure points are actually given in.
Yeah, a little bit of a back and forth between Return and Whippet, but honestly, Return doesn't seem to be super bothered by it. More than happy to let Whippet waste his shells. But Whippet has crossed to the A line. How does that change things up here for the Sentinels? Do they even need to really change anything up? I don't think they're too worried about this, to be honest. I mean, Dell's watching it with the Superconch. Returned is watching it with the Superconch. You got a Superconch versus a 60 TP in a worst case, where, for example, the 2 flag was getting capped, and I'm back and Returned in that fight, so yeah, so far so good for Sentinels. But now Dell might be under a little bit of pressure, and I'm not sure he's going to get the assistance that he needs to survive here. Let's see. Cindy trying to help out. Wymo the same, and I mean, even the other IS4 over the other side of the map, which is Rainbow, will have an angle in onto this one, but the focus fire is so good from Matildas that they do find that overmatch and essentially turn this into a 5v4.
That was a spectacular crossfire as well. Now, Magic Shells need to get out of there before Rainbow is able to get another shot in. And ultimately, yeah, this is the perfect opportunity for an overmatch. Bolognese needs to rendezvous, needs to join up. They need to lean into this pack mentality heavily right now. Rainbow is so disconnected right now from the rest of the team that this is the perfect opportunity for that push. Though we have to highlight the fact that there's still a very heavy 100. There's still a lot of HP to chunk through. So the buffer is still there. Whippet, though, losing a whole lot of HP. 900 HP is not particularly great, but this is the good start for Matildas.
Certainly is. Cindy, not looking too crash hot here. Whippet should have that killing blow if necessary, but it'll go the way of Joe Atora, and that frees Whippet up for a big 760 into the side of Wymo. You're right. That's exactly how it should be going. And, well, so far, Matildas are getting the better of this fight, but I wonder if that changes now that the IS-4 of Rainbow will arrive. Again, returned into Super Conqueror, still looking fairly healthy as well. If Sentinels can find a killing blow somewhere, then yeah, maybe they were in with a chance, but I think it's a little bit too far gone now. Wymo's done a good job of surviving as long as he has, but eventually does get taken down, and so Sentinels, they will end up losing this round. I thought for a moment in that 3v5, if some good shots came through, maybe Sentinels could equalize, but finding a needle in the haystack really there. I think I'm hanging on for something that was never really going to happen, and Rainbow's done. So Matildas equalize at 1 apiece.
Yeah, very nicely done. Very good coordination as well. Matildas, yeah, kicking it off really, really nicely. Just gonna quickly check as well who did pick the. So I believe this Himmels is. Yeah, that's a Sentinels pick. So now we're going on to Muravanka, which is Matilda's pick. This is the playground for Whippet, which he's been sort of quite keen for in remembering in the previous seasons as well. So I'm actually quite curious how will Muro really go here, because after some of the changes, it did become a little bit more of a balanced sort of map to really play around. But I gotta say, Matildas really managed to coordinate themselves quite well going into the second round, and that was a respectable push really from them.
Very much so. And like I said, one apiece for Matildas on this map. I'm going to call that a win, to be quite honest with you. Yeah. Did we get to see the map, Vito, before the match started?
Don't think we did. So the map, Vito,
that was Sentinels pick?
Yeah, so Himmels is Sentinels pick. Then we go into Muro, which is Matilda's pick. Yep. Then it's Sand River and then Tundra as the tiebreaker.
So, look, I mean, with all of that knowledge, Himmelsdorf being picked by Sentinels, you know, you're happy with that as a choice from Sentinels, but definitely keen on Matildas getting the 1-1. Do we expect a 2-0 out of Muro on either side? I'm not so sure necessarily we're going to get that.
I'm feeling
it should be an
1-1
interesting
again.
series.
Yeah. Yeah, for one way or the other, this is absolutely bound to be an interesting set of series, because, I mean, Muro is... I'm feeling another 1-1, really, here, because if Matildas would pull off a 2-0, then that's a heavy advantage that they would be able to claim going into Sand River, which actually, arguably, after their initial success, didn't particularly look too hot for them, really. But that was, mind you, I think that was on one of the playdays where Bolognese was not actually present for the playday, which ended up actually hindering them quite rather substantially. So, I gotta say, I am quite excited for this, because Matildas are showing their teeth. They're able to really nail their pushes whenever they can fully commit. And so far, it's a nice and even battle.
Yep. Which is not something you'd say every day of the week when you're watching teams go up against Sentinels. But
that's
hey,
true.
Has been a different looking Sentinels this season. So yeah, I mean the rest of the map pool does have me kind of interested. I've always felt Muro is a bit of a 1-1 map. I think maybe that's a little bit of like the bias coming through with the fact that it used to be so heavily defensive sided. Now obviously the map has changed up a little bit. I'm still a little bit undecided as to where I sort of see this map leaning, but definitely has opened up a little bit more for the attackers to make work. So I guess there is more of an argument now for a 2-0 on the map than what there used to be, but I'm prepared to still look at this one and say it's a 1-1 for sure. And then obviously we take a look at the Sand River as well.
Yeah, that's where I have a head scratcher.
I don't know.
That's where I'm a little bit.
The thing is, like,
curious.
You know, it's very hard this season to actually make a prediction that you feel confident in. That's the major issue. It's just that, like, Sentinels have been so wishy-washy, and then Matildas is a new team, How can you even like look at this and say, oh, I'm going to be able to make an accurate prediction here?
Oh, look, I mean, sometimes you gotta, I suppose, believe in miracles, at least in this case, because for Matildas, as just looking at it as a team name, this has been quite a huge turnaround. And we're looking at the lineups right now. I mean, Jordan, Mouse to be introduced here for Sentinels. Last time Mouse was introduced, it got completely decimated out in the middle of the town. And then we're looking at the STB one. It has been actually given to Ravioli rather than Magic Shells, which is an even more of a bit of an eyebrow raiser.
Well, map control for Sentinels seems to be the name of the game. Very default setup, isn't it? All across the map. Not trying to get too aggressive, not trying to play too fast. Gonna see if they're gonna get any kind of aggression from Matildas. I don't think that's a bad setup from Sentinels. Matildas is the kind of team that's liable to try to get a bit aggro. Maybe not with this composition. STB1 really the only fast tank, quote-unquote fast tank in there. But you wouldn't expect the STB1 to be doing anything too silly too early on in the piece. Still a pretty fragile tank in the wrong situations. So I like to see the Matildas playing this one nice and slow. And Cindy and his IS-7 doing a bit of scouting here as well.
I am a little bit curious about this whole setup because not every day would you get to see. Well, first of all, not every day we get to see Muro, and not every day we get to see, a major presence in the Magic Forest. Really, so that 8-0 line usually gets fairly minimal amount of traction. It's usually about the brawls out in the town, brawls around the one flag. And it seems like finally Sentinels sort of, they scouted out. They don't see anything too sus really happening around the forest area or /2 flag. In the meantime, for Matildas, they are actually playing a really nice passive game so far, where they have the coverage for the 2 flag in case there is any heat covering or coming in terms of having SCONK and the STB is able to rotate in and out. And they have some presence in the village, and they also covering the 1 flag. So at the moment, basically, no matter where Sentinels are going to be going, theoretically, Matildas should be well aware of the intentions.
Nice start for Dell. Good trade. Whippet unable to connect with the 60 TP. Dell, though, superior gun on the Super Kong makes it look pretty easy in the end.
Curious about that Wymo's position, because right now, theoretically, you collapse the IS-7 in the STB. That should be winnable, because no way Sentinels decide to leave one of the SCONKs to watch over the village, and they just commit to the 1 flag, which seems like that is the case more and more I look at it. Surely this is where the collapse, because Matildas will need to make that executive decision right here, right now. They need to get rid of at least one of those tanks on the approach, and with Rainbow already getting into the cap circle and into the hold down position for Whippet, it is going to be a nightmare to deal with.
He doesn't take any damage getting in there either. Cindy as
Exactly.
well.
Neither Cindy.
Both get in for free. That's not good. Less than ideal for the Matildas. Now, we do still have Bowl at the church, so in a worst case, he'll be able to get a fairly easy reset onto Rainbow, but in doing so, he will get farmed by Wymo in the back.
Oh, yeah.
So this is not...
And there's technically Dell as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is not looking fantastic right now for Matildas. I'm interested to see what the response is going to end up being, but they're going to have to choose pretty quickly. They've got 25 seconds left to think, and then they're going to need to find that reset. Rainbow has moved off the cap, and so now there's a little bit of a pressure release for the Matildas, but even still, they've got to find a way to get this reset eventually.
Wait, Matildas just gave away the high ground as well. That's where Rainbow could actually just completely drive over and start taking shots at Whippet as well, disabling that. With Bolognese being one-on-one against Wymo, those APCRs ain't going to do anything apart from that small lower plate that the Mouse has. So that is not ideal at all. 4v4, theoretically this could work, but Bolognese needs to stay alive for as long as he can. In the meantime, those shots need to land ASAP, and instead they're driving into the crossfire to get rid of Rainbow.
No one's even shooting at Sydney.
What?
So even still beyond this, I mean, the cap is going to be a bit of an afterthought for Matildas, but it's something that they have to worry about. You're right. They've given up so much. I mean, the game's over. I think there's no question about that one. But like, I mean, Cindy's still not getting reset. What's going on? He could have stayed on the cap. He could have capped out in like 10 seconds just there. I mean, Joe and Tori, you'd think, or at least hope, would be able to get a reset. But this round just sort of fell apart a little bit for Matildas, and Sentinels set themselves up with a nice little crossfire that Matildas decided they wanted to drive into. So, hey, is what it is. But a win from Sentinels on the attack of Muro. Pretty good stuff.
Yeah. Look, absolutely a good start here for Sentinels to continue their run, claim that early advantage as well. I'm gonna be honest. Definitely, once again, quite a departure from what Matildas were able to set up before, where they would have been able to, you know, completely hound anyone that even sets foot into the village, and then from there on start collapse. But look, it is what it is. Regardless of whatever Matildas were planning, Sydney's Sentinels were able to really sort of dial in and basically wrap it all up in a quick and fashionable manner, really.
I was going to go with quick and dirty. Quick and dirty. Love it.
Yeah.
Tell you what, I think Matildas probably have to go back to the drawing board for that one. Didn't look super poggers. Put it lightly. And I think part of the issue is just they just let Sentinels do what they want. Like, it wasn't even a world where, okay, Sentinels say, yep, we're going to have to get someone on the cap to put a bit of pressure on. We'll sack a bit of HP for that. That's normally the way, like, that's normally the exchange. Or, if not, normally there's someone that's kind of readily available to get a reset or whatever. But it didn't really seem like Matildas had any of those options. I mean, yes, Bowl can get a reset from Church, but he's going to get farmed by the mouse. So maybe that's not really a go-to option. So, I mean, in that case, you'd want to see Matildas do a little bit more early damage before Sentinels start to put that pressure on, something like that. But
yeah,
Sentinels kind of got to go for a walk in the park, do whatever they wanted, and Matildas, I mean, at a certain point, have to try to do something on the defense, and they're already kind of up the creek without a paddle by then.
Absolutely. Yeah, look, this definitely feels like a little bit of a miscalculation, really, with what Matildas really had the setup for. Whereas, because, I mean, you look at the idea with what they brought in, of the Sentinels, that is, it was a fairly similar lineup of what they did back in the regular season when Matildas were able to outclass them on Muro. What happened was, Weimar went to the town, then they've brought in the IS-7 and the medium tank. In this case, it was the STB-1, and it was basically a 2v1 brawl, which then they were able to completely reclaim the whole control over the village, and then collapse in through between the two hills into the one flank, which back then worked out like as intended. It worked out just perfectly right. But between the timing of the push and them deciding for an ungodly reason to focus on Rainbow rather than even Cindy, even Dell, any other tank, felt like it's just a bit of a bit of a question mark and a bit of a head scratcher, really, there, because I think it was just a miscommunication or lack of said communication, really, for Matildas to really find the correct approach in where they wanted to who they wanted to eliminate first.
A lot of damage blocked from Joe Tor, 1600. Bit of an afterthought, not a really big concern. Let's have a look at the replay here, Cthulhu, and see maybe where things went wrong. I think, for me, this is where it goes wrong. Rainbow and Cindy both getting onto the cap without taking any damage. Good shot from Ball onto Dell, but what can Ball really do here when he's being camped out by a mouse? Not really a whole lot.
Oh, yeah.
And then, obviously, this is like, all right, well, game's over at that point.
Yeah, that one still just kind of confuses me. It's probably the only way to really describe this. But yeah, you are absolutely correct. Bull is very much unable to do much against a mouse solo. You add another tank into that fray, that's when Bull is able to do the work, because then they can juggle that heat between the two tanks, and this is where they would have been able to do it. But it's, again, what ifs and all of that doesn't matter anymore. We're going into the second round of Muro, which, look, this is where Sentinels get to defend. This is where they could absolutely throw a spanner in the works of Matildas, really.
Yep, 100%. I'm on board with that. It looked very convincing from Sentinels in the first round. What have they got cooking up in the lab for the defense? Double Super Conk I see already. What else is there? Double IS-7 and Dell in the CS-63. So a bit of mobility. What's this from Matildas? A Foch B. Are you on the Foch B hype train? Do you like it? Whippet likes it. He likes autoloaders a lot. Don't know if I'm... I mean, look, I will say I like the Foch B when it works. I think it's a tank that when it works, it looks sexy. But when it doesn't, you look a little bit silly.
It's a ridiculously niche tank that, in the right condition and the right environment, yeah, it will flourish. Absolutely, Foch B will be able to decimate basically any sort of tank. The interesting part about the way how it's being set up so far is the way how I see it is, unless there's a flank by Dell with that CS, which he's been very avidly practicing even in pubbies, this should actually work out fairly well. Even in the crossfire, Foch B from Whippet should pose a huge threat. And now more so, in comes the question of how are Matildas looking to really bounce their aggro, because return now being spotted. Oh, in comes the resets, in comes the problems. Matilda's banked a little bit too much on just holding their position here.
12 seconds. Where's the reset coming
Do they have
from?
enough time?
Well, I'm
Is there
not
enough time?
so sure. There we go. Return has got
buddy?
one onto Bol, but it's not a really significant reset. I'm not sure that they get this one, Cthulhu. 3 seconds to Matildas. Are they going to cap it out? There's another couple of seconds being bought by Return, but where is the reset coming from? Oh, no! Did they get it? They've got it at the very last second. They've had to sacrifice Rainbow for it. Finally, the bona fide reset comes through onto Whippet, but how on earth have the Sentinels let it get to this point? I don't know whether or not they're going to get away with this one. Whippet is going to farm Returned in the backside. That's a Foch B with 6 shots available. Returned as a dead man, and Sentinels, well, they're getting damage done elsewhere, but I'm not sure they're going to get enough.
Whippet is yelling right now at Ravioli because that would have been a freest clip as well, but that's beyond the point. That's the free farm.
Safi.
That's the second tank. Safi as well. He's getting some good shots in there as well.
Yeah, I mean, actually, Sentinels have got a really nice crossfire established here. Cindy is going to die, but they are doing a lot of damage right here, Dell and Safi. So, on the defense, I mean, Dell's going to have to do something pretty magical to keep Safi safe, or try to at least assist Safi as much as possible. But Whippet's down to a one-shot. Safi can definitely win the 1v1 against Ravioli. Does preempt the shot a little bit. Oh, and that's a good shot from Ravioli Al Dente. This is where your individual mechanics are really going to have to come into play, right? Because every single shot matters. And the question is Safi washed? Well, I wouldn't make an opinion known on that. But he is definitely in trouble now because Ravioli Al Dente is pushing his way forward. And Dell, in the meanwhile, is also struggling against Magic Shells. So I think it's probably over at this point.
Hold on that one, really, because Safi right now, if he's able to shut down Ravioli, Bolognese is only one shot from there on out.
It's not looking good, Cthulhu. It's really not.
Yeah, now it's no longer looks any good because basically even just a ram from Bolognese should be in. Yeah, that's it. That's GG. At this point, yeah, plump down, whip it on the cap, get the Bolognese in there, get Ravioli, Magic Shells to block the shots, and you got your whole setup done and dusted. Once again, another 1-1.
Yeah. What happened there? I wonder. We'll take a look at the replays afterwards. Dell's just going to give this game up, is he, or no? Is he going to try and get
that's just Dell just doing Dell things. He did that before on Cliff as well, where he just kept on circling. I believe it was Ravioli Al Dente as well on Cliff, and just kept on just running circles around him. Even though basically the game was already all oh, sorry, not Ravioli. What am I saying? I think it was against actually I want to say JT, one of the Scorpions players. But yeah, regardless, yeah, that was a really good coordination from Matildas, and despite the fact that they didn't really get what they wanted in terms of just, you know, outright capping, they, like you highlighted, forced Rainbow to push, which ended up, well, being his demise.
All right, well, Matildas will be happy, equalizing it again to a piece. It's making you know, I feel like we're kind of like getting what we expected out of today and out of the playoffs so far, right? You can't have a season that is that close and then go into playoffs and be like, oh, one team's just going to absolutely put them here. All the matches have been pretty tight so far. Sand River coming up next. What I want to look at, though, is how did Sentinels get themselves into that situation? Was it very similar to what Sentinels was able to do on the attack, right? Where they just kind of let the attackers get onto the cap for free. It kind of seemed like that. And then you obviously have return there to get resets, but he can't get the reset onto the player he needed to.
Yeah, I think looking at that, the main difference being is that Whippet sort of originally pre-set up that it would be a slow pressure. The moment he realized that literally nobody's getting spotted, not a single person is on the positions where usually they would be able to deny any pushes or bleed, he just said, okay, just get in, just get on. Because that meant that majority of the Sentinels would be on the opposite side of the map. They would have to go through a whole lot of rotations to even get to the point to deny the cap points. And by that time, they would get quite a fair bit of the information. Whereas on the side of Sentinels, it was also a pretty decent idea to scout out to make sure that, once again, no shenanigans are being played around the forest. And from there on, they tried to sort of roam around. The problem being with that is, again, against the pack mentality, you spreading out your whole roster is far from an ideal scenario. And, well, in case of Rainbow, he decided, okay, I'm going to volunteer as a tribute. And, well, unfortunately, that tribute got extinguished rather quickly.
Yeah. Well, I'm just having a look back at it on stream because of the delay. And I guess, yeah, you just look at it and Sentinels really just did not have any tanks in a position to find the reset. Someone got a decent one onto Bowl. I think it might have been Rainbow from like all the way down in mid initially. And that's actually why Sentinels was able to hang on for as long as they did. But eventually, obviously, it just became a little bit too much. And when you see a tank have to basically full commit to get the reset and like just run it down, it's never worth. Like, you get the reset, you save the game in that sense, but you throw an entire tank away, it's just not going to happen, unfortunately. So, well, here's the replay. Let's have a look.
Yeah.
And Sentinels go very wide in mid, don't they? So they go around the church. Yeah. And I think that's part of the problem as well, is that they just don't have tanks on the correct side of the town to get reset.
Magic Shells got to farm there as well in that position. I mean, look at that. Rainbow just drove straight right past him. Magic Shells was able to put in quite a fair few shots in there. That perfect farm as well by Fosh B, despite the fact that, yeah, Whippet lost majority of his HP, sat on literally 4 health points. But even then, like, that whole clip was incredibly valuable.
Man, look at how close that ends up being, though. Even still, just wonder what could have been if, you know, some more shots would have connected from the Sentinels. But obviously, that's a bit of an aside. Now we have to start thinking about Sand River. You had your reservations about this map going into Muravanka. We were like, you know, don't worry about it. We'll see what happens on Muro, then we can discuss. Well, now we're at that point. So what's the thought process going into Sand River?
Look, I think in this specific scenario, Sand River is almost going to feel like Prokhorovka. In terms of that, it is going to be quite defend-decided, where you're looking at a whole lot of positions on Sand River that you can just lock down absolute pushes. You even if you miss a few shots, you can still completely deny a lot of the progression that can be done on both of the flags. Problem being, though, is on the attack, though, you have to almost sacrifice some HP to actually even get to the objective that you want to reach, whether it's flag 1, flag 2, or even just go out for the all-out brawl. And so for the setup on the side of Matildas, no matter whether they are going for attack or defense, they need to be very wary about the crossfire setups, because Sentinels have been able to, at least have been known to be able to set up some really decent crossfires previously. So on Sand River, the way how I'm looking right now, their first round, because Sentinels will be defending in the first round, the first round for Matildas is going to be very, very important, because they need to basically win this to ensure that they have a continuous possibility to even, you know, survive this playoffs run. Because on the defense, I have a little bit more confidence in them. They should be able to really lock it all down. They know how to play Sand River defense. Offense has been a very much of a questionable turnaround for majority of the teams in general. So this is where I'm sort of looking at this. I'm still feeling yet another 1-1, and for us to send it over to the Tundra tiebreak.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I don't think we've seen too much Sand River this season anyway, though. So I don't know. Maybe the team's got something in their back pocket. Let's find out. It's time to jump onto Sand River, and it indeed will be Matildas to start on the attack. They do have the double super conk. Seems to be a bit of a mainstay these days. Double 277 and Centurion Action X. Again, the CAC's popping its head up every now and then. Similar approach from the Sentinels. Different tanks, but filling close roles as well. Yeah, exactly.
I'm looking at this whole setup. Too sure what to make any of the conclusions so far. I mean, Whippet right now, his position is perfect here. The only difference, though, he needs to have somebody else to light up other tanks for him. In the meantime, you're looking at the positionings. Best case scenario here: spot Dell. Oh, sorry, not Dell. Spot the returned on CS. Get rid of him. That's basically the eyes of the Sentinels. From there on, theoretically, you could start applying pressure onto the 1 cap with either the Super Kongs or the 277s. Reposition your Centurion to say where the S-Kongs are, and then you basically have the farm position. But again, all of this is a whole lot of theory and not a whole lot of action, so I suppose we get to we'll soon get to see that happen, because, well, whilst Return not really actually dead, he's forced out of his position.
Yep, and that's good. That's very good. He's going to continue all the way back up to the north, so almost the entire map control has been lost by Sentinels, apart from Hard North. What
Well, that's where I think they might actually play it.
The 277s do. I think that'll be the difference maker here. That'll be the point of discussion.
I'm going to be absolutely honest with you, Jordan. I am not particularly too sold on what the 277s are doing, though the game plan does seem to be to just keep on applying pressure. That IS-7, I'm wondering if it is Wymo or Rainbow that is sitting at the A4 that could have had the opportunity to actually flank around quite heavily, which seems to be actually the play here. Dell bleeding a lot of HP, so as a reality, I think this is huge. This is even more huge now. That Ignite is great.
Oh yeah, I mean, it depends on your point of view. Awful.
I mean,
if you're
sorry,
a Sentinel
Ignite
supporter.
great for Sentinels. Yeah, awful for Sentinels. Great for Matildas. But the way how I'm looking at this right now, Matildas are facing arguably one of the biggest challenges right now, right here in the playoffs.
Yeah, I wonder if Sentinels is going to crumble under the pressure. We talked about them being a team that, you know, does have that mental fortitude, but maybe that's come into question a little bit this season. And here is one of those moments where you'd look at this on paper and you'd say Matildas have a pretty significant advantage. However, Sentinels is the kind of team that, not, or at least in previous seasons, would dig themselves out of this and make it look relatively easy. But 25 seconds, and they're going to have to find that reset, and I am not too confident that there's going to be an easy reset coming through here for the Sentinels. CS63 of Returned is absolutely miles away. He's having to drive through buildings and trees. That's slowing him down. He's definitely not going to be getting there. So
Don't go wide.
It's on to Cindy. It really is going to have to be on to Cindy. Oh, never mind. Someone got one in. Not sure. Maybe it was Wymo?
Could have been Wymo, but yeah, right now this is still a good setup. But the problem being is if the clock keeps on getting reset, Returned will have a perfect flank as well here. Oh, that's a good reset. Whippet, why are you going wide though? Is the main question for me here. Though on the side of Sentinels, they're doing a phenomenal job. This focus fire is great, and even them being able to circumvent the blockade by Bolognese and Ravioli.
All right, well, Matildas, I mean, I think they're still doing some pretty good damage here. They're really relying on that cap, though. I wonder if they've almost overcommitted to the cap.
Yeah.
Would they have turned this brawl if they would have just got off the cap and taken the fight? Maybe. Still, it's obviously a concern for the Sentinels, but they have the numbers, and Ravioli Al Dente is out in no man's land. He wants to get those shots onto Returned, and is doing so, but obviously in turn, he's now stuck in a crossfire again. They need the reset. Sentinels continue to need the reset. It's going to be on to Return to get it, at least in this case. Does he get blown up for his troubles? Probably yes. The reset, it is there. Just in time. And somehow he's still alive. I mean, the aggro juggling from Sentinels has been insane. But even still, is this winnable for Matildas? Joe Tora has to finish off Returned. Gun takes the shot from Return, so Joe Tora maintains 526 HP. Now we're into the 2v2 with Magic Shells having a full HP 277. But Matilda's on the attack.
Matildas, they could have hit there. They could have hit there for so easily, just tucked away and not really engaged in that gunfight. But yeah, maybe a little bit of a lapse in judgment. Right now, though, 2 S-Kongs versus 2 277s. Ooh, Sentinels definitely have the upper hand here, Jordan. Definitely would be a rough one to really pull themselves out of that. And even then, on top of that, Dell having the high ground. I mean, we all know what high ground means as well and how much power it gives there too. So, for all intents and purposes right now, Sentinels can just literally back off and well, wait for Matildas to waffle around and play for time. Oh no, magic shells. That would have been dangerous.
Indeed, but he's going to be able to get up behind Dell, so eventually he will win that duel. Oh, tracked? That's not ideal.
Yeah.
See, this is where, again, individual player skill comes into it, and Dell, no question about it, very individually skilled. I mean, he hits the tracking shot, he gets a free shot in as well because of that. And instead of magic shells being, well, fairly healthy, he's actually almost going to lose this fight. He does get Dell, but it doesn't matter. Cindy should farm him, and now Joe Toro's got no chance. So that one tracking shot, that one little instance, makes the game so much easier for Sentinels to win, and credit to Dell.
Actually, now that I look at the cap from this angle as well, I would like to withdraw my criticism of Whippet as well, because from that actual position, that it wouldn't have really made much of that difference, really. So look, yeah, well played. It was a valid effort by Matildas, and well, Sentinels were able to read into this quite perfectly. Well played, yeah. 3rd point there for Sentinels, and only 1 round away from continuing their gauntlet run.
Yeah. All right, well, easy as you like for the Sentinels. Maybe not quite so easy, but either way, they get it over the line, and Matildas will be a little bit disappointed to see that one go by the wayside, because again, they were seconds away from making it happen in a couple of instances. There was multiple times where that reset came through in the last second, and unfortunately for Matildas, they couldn't do it. And that's kind of what I was saying as well during that brawl. I was wondering, like, is it the right choice to be committing to the cap, or could Matildas have got off the cap and managed to make a difference in that brawl, considering how close it went in terms of the HP? Maybe 1 or 2 more shots going through from the guys on the cap actually matters.
I think the other opportunity that there was, now that I'm sort of thinking about it and re-looking at the replay as well, would have been the fact that if, say, Whippet would have, instead of jumping onto the 3 cap, say, hopped on, then backed off, and then looped around that sort of there, I believe it would have been the sort of the H0 position, where he would have had actually a wider angle to fire at the IS-7s, at the S-Kongs, and would have been able to actually, I think, make the biggest amount of difference. Because, I mean, you're looking at the damage numbers, Whippet is the one missing out on a lot of that damage, a lot of that potential that Centurion Action X can bring in. Whereas for Sentinels, look, yeah, they held steadfast. They didn't really let this surprise sort of catch them off guard, despite the fact that it was 2 times. It was basically a second away from the loss. So, look, kudos to Sentinels for keeping up their pressure, and well, for Matildas, yeah, unfortunately, it's just those small mistakes that ended up costing the whole round.
Yeah. Taking a look back at the replays, here's where it did start to go a little bit wrong for the Sentinels, and the irony of it is that Dell is the player that got set on fire, looked like he was the one in trouble, and then ends up in the clutch and is able to secure it for the Sentinels. So, I mean, just look at these guys sitting back, chilling. Okay, 20 seconds. Are they getting shots across? I mean, apart from Whippet, maybe not. What if they all swing with Whippet there? What if they all swing with Whippet and try to take the shots onto Returned instead of letting Return come to them? Is that a difference?
Yeah, that would have been a different. That would have been a difference maker, absolutely. That extra few shots to prevent the reset and maybe track even the Return on any further approach would have been great. But look, unfortunately for them, very fortunate for Sentinels, it did not happen. And as it is, yeah, well, for Magic Shells as well, a huge misplay to try to just drive out in the open, fully realizing that Cindy is there. Well, basically meant that that was basically GG. well played, and yeah, look, a few of those misplays that shouldn't have been made, but could have been avoided in a certain situation. But I mean, it's one thing for us to talk about that, to criticize the players, and it's a completely different thing to be there playing and having quite the high stakes as well being presented to you when it ends up being basically the survival in the playoffs bracket. Because for Matildas, this is arguably one of the closest runs that they've had so far, and one of the more flashiest as well. I mean, from starting off with taking down both Sentinels and Scorpions in the regular season to being this close again against Sentinels in the playoffs as well.
Well, how close are they really? I mean, this could end up being 4-2 at the end of Sand River, so at that point, it doesn't look all that close. We'll have to obviously see what Matildas can do on their defense. Does Sentinels have the ability to convert this on the attack? That was a relatively close round, all things considered, so maybe there's still some confidence there for the Matildas, but it is starting to get down to the wire.
Good highlight as well by the observers. No hardening for the CAX, meaning sub 2k HP. Instead, we're grabbing the vent, assuming for just a little bit of a buff to basically, oh no, basically everything. Goodbye buff to your whole HP. Wow, that was a good shot from Weimar.
Yeah.
Wow, that was a well-placed shot. And yes, of course, there is still some RNG in that shot, but wow, that was a very beneficial one for Sentinels right now. Jeez.
What does Whippet do from here? He's going to have to play Sniper Cax, that's for sure. Try and sit very far back on the map and have some impact that way. It's a weird looking defense though, isn't it? Right? You got two 277s working through the southern side of the map. What this is doing is kind of giving Sentinels the 2 flag.
A lot of control that is actually now being given away. The fact that already one of the 2 Centurions is already tagged to all hell. Bolognese will need to be doing a lot of legwork here if it is a collapse towards the 2 flag. Not to mention as well the fact that the 277s will have to do a whole heap of legwork as well there to just even be able to assist with that, and even then returned will have the position of a lifetime to farm up those 2 277s. That's a 1-all so far, just all a big problem, and in comes the push already.
I don't know how Matildas is going to dig themselves out of this trouble, but maybe it's off the back of the 2 277s. Can they maybe get on top of returned? His position is now going to be known with that shot onto Ravioli al dente, but I think he's far back enough toward the 1-2 line that the 277s, even if they were to try to push him, they wouldn't be able to dig him out quickly enough. So, Cap's coming through. Players are spotted. Resets are not coming through just yet, even though some shots are going in the direction of the Sentinels. Now returned has been spotted, so that's kind of what I'm talking about. Those 277s do actually manage to get on top of returned, which is a little bit of a problem for the Sentinels, but they do still have the overmatch in the main fight.
Absolutely so. With Ravioli being a medium tank, he will be the main focus of the whole show. Already sub 1k. Ravioli needs to run. But at the moment, he's running directly into yet another crossfire. Like you highlighted, yeah, the overmatch is going to be great here. And yeah, Sentinels are certainly looking to wrap it all up with a nice bow. But, I mean, Rainbow, if he gets taken out here, this could be great. This could be a huge opportunity. Whippet's still alive, mind you, as well. So he could continue providing assisting fire here as long as he can stay alive.
Very much hanging in balance.
Yeah, Bolognese now being in a dip, he is the next target, and that is the big overpush that he does not want to be in.
Yeah, Cindy and Weimar should get this one done pretty cleanly. You do still have Whippet trying to render some assistance, but double IS7 against the Super Conk, who has now been tracked.
Double tracked as well.
I don't think Bol is going anywhere anytime soon, apart from back to the garage. And with that, that should be the numbers advantage given over to the Sentinels. 4-on-3. Round's still not over just yet. But the 277s, if they're left alone to try to clutch this one out, I don't really see it happening. They just don't have the mobility. Especially not in a 4-on-2. If it's a 2-on-3, you know, maybe I'll give them a chance there. Like, for example, if Rainbow goes down here cheaply, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, so far this has been orchestrated excellently here by Sentinels. They really managed to really find the good over matches. They managed to really almost, well, it's a dirty word to say bait out engagements, but that was exactly what happened. They were able to force their opponents to give up some of those positions, and once again, it's, well, a 2-7-7 versus an S-Conk. I mean, how do you even win this? Because there's a numbers over match. The fact that Magic Shells is just about to go down in, well, just shy of 6 seconds. And yeah, that's it. There goes Magic Shells. There goes Whip It. That's GG. Matildas are basically out.
Yeah, unfortunate that it ends that way, but Sentinels, I think we all sort of expected them coming into this matchup to be a team that was going to be difficult to beat. And once again, they sort of reiterate why they're one of those teams to beat in the playoffs.
Exactly that. Yeah, absolutely. Managed to absolutely turn up to the maximum, and look, certainly quite a difference maker comparative to what we've seen from the regular season.
I mean, could Joe still clutch this? Could he still clutch it?
Technically, if he is able to bounce a few more shots, not let Dell farm him, that would be an opportunity. But that's a poor choice of pathing there. Not gonna lie.
I mean, decent trade. At least he'll get the reload off here as well. But the issue is going to be when all these tanks get on top of him. He could theoretically put all 3 tanks to a one-shot. There's a good shot, though, in onto Dell. And if he can now dodge a shell from Wymo, maybe he keeps this one alive. Cindy's finding it difficult to get involved. Wymo playing ring around the Rosie. This starts to get a little bit awkward now for the Sentinels, particularly if this is a 1-for-1 trade. Joe, he wants to chase Wymo down. I think that's the right choice. Shot comes through from Cindy, and now he's cooked.
Yeah, that's GG.
Because he can't push Wymo out of that position. And, of course, Cindy should get the killing blow through. It was close. It was a good attempt from Joe Atora, but Sentinels will survive. And Matildas don't quite make it happen this time.
Yeah, look, bit unfortunate, though, but still a valiant, effort here from them. Though, I mean, you look at the scoreline at the end, yeah, it didn't really reach tiebreaker. But I will say, though, my sort of worries were very much came to, well, I say worries, but more so concerns for the performance of Matildas on Sand River definitely came to reality here, where Sentinels were really able to outclass them, really outperform, and just simply be better in terms of just picking their engagements. It was still a pretty solid effort. I will have to give it to Matildas, same how it was a solid effort from AX. Unfortunately, at the end of the day, well, at least for AX, they get another life. They get another chance to really play it out. I believe they are actually going to be the next opponents of the Sentinels. And
yeah, that's an interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah, that one is going to be a whole different kind of worms, which I am quite curious to see how will that really all pan out.
Yeah, look, we'll talk about that a little bit next week, I suppose. But just touching on the Matildas and Sentinels for that final round. Wymo leading from the front this time. Did a pretty solid job. Yeah, and good attempt from the Matildas on Sand River. Both of those rounds come pretty close, but unfortunately, cooler heads prevail. And so the Sentinels are able to get it over the line. Wymo pickers very happy with the fantasy results from that round. Overall, is that a bit too close for comfort for Sentinels? I mean, it ends up being a 4-2, so I don't think it's that bad.
I'd say it's more so it's a concern on specific maps. So say we go into the AX games, we look at, Sentinels on Muro, that's probably something that they would prefer to avoid. We look at Sentinels on the Himmels, probably not as much, but again, something that is worth mentioning, that they also have a bit of a tendency to occasionally spread out, which ends up being the problem. And yeah, look, this certainly didn't particularly pan out too well for Matildas. For Sentinels, I suppose the way how they can take it really is just a few more learning points about how they can improve their gameplay here. Because that's, well, one step done. What is it? 2 more steps to make it to LAN.
2 more steps.
Actually, no, wait. Is it 2 more steps?
It's 1 more step.
1 more step to land. Yeah, true. So AX are the team that that stand between them and the LAN.
Correct. But even then, once they get the LAN, right? It's what you're saying. 2 more steps is like it's what it used to be to get to LAN. It's 2 more steps to the grand final. It's 2 more steps to be able to defend your title.
Yeah.
But 1 more step to LAN, which, you know, like obviously that's nice. I think that's really nice if you're Action X, and you know that you only have to win 1 more series to get to LAN, because like your goal this season is like, well, I don't know, make playoffs, and then it's like, okay, now make LAN. So if you make LAN, you've kind of achieved maybe more than what most people expected of you. But for Sentinels, who are the champions, to not make it to the final is still a disappointing result. So I think there's a lot more pressure still on the Sentinels to win this next game, and then obviously even past that, win the next game beyond that, and make it to the final to try to defend their title. Man, that's sad for Whippet. It's one of those games, isn't it?
Yeah, that one was a tilter, definitely. Look, I mean, at the end of it all, it was still a valid effort. Just unfortunately for Sentinels, things didn't pan out as much as they would have wanted. The shots didn't pen as much as they wanted. That double shot that should have went into Wimo would have been a huge boon, because I believe that would have been at least 900 damage, if not more. And yeah, from there on, it's just all went completely downhill, and rather unfortunate.
Yeah, I like the way Joe Atura played this out. That's a great shot.
That was a good play, yeah.
It's
unfortunately, just pathing.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate for him that Wimo's just a little bit too smart there. If Wimo actually lets him play the ring around the Rosie again, like, that is definitely winnable for Joe Atura. So good heads-up play from Wimo. Even if Wimo dies there, Cindy should get that kill every day of the week, shooting from an angle like what he was. But, yeah, overall, very interesting results tonight. I mean, I'm pretty happy with what we got from both, because I got both my predictions right. And like I said, I'm pretty happy that I was able to overtake Wargaming finally. They stopped copying my predictions. But still, you know, a fair few more interesting matches yet to come this season. And also, I think we've got to get a bit of an interview going in a second here as well, Cthulhu. So I don't want to like jump ahead. You know what I mean? Like, we're at that point where I'm like, well, we'll start talking about what's happening next week, what's happening at the final. But we've still got the interview to have a chat with. So try to keep it on topic for a little bit longer. But yeah, I mean, overall, the results thus far are obviously still a little bit kind of like, you know, hard to manage, right? It's been a very tight sort of a season thus far, and it's very hard to predict. But anyway, we got Wimo, so let's bring him in, have a chat, see what Wimo thinks about that win. Wimo, what do you think about that win? Yeah, I guess
pretty good win, yeah.
Do you have anything you want to say? Because, like, I know you guys are all talk, right? You come in. I mean, I don't want to say all talk. That's probably
Jesus. Relax.
But you know, you talk a lot. Okay, let's just put it that way. So you've had, let's be real, a bit of a shocking season. Come into the playoffs. All the discussion is, yeah, don't worry about it. Whether we just pop off in playoffs, that's all that matters to us. Blah blah blah. Okay, fair enough. You've won your first playoffs game. Vindicated, or is there still more work to do?
Oh, it's just a matter of opinion, bro. So we've had a pretty good season, I reckon. We've maintained all of our strategies. Haven't had to give anything away. Moving into finals, we haven't shown anyone anything. It'll be nice and easy from here, right?
Okay, we'll see.
All right. Well, look, I mean, going into the Sand River, obviously, you guys got to see a few of the rather curious, rush strats. Specifically the second round of Muro, where the outright 3-cap came around against you guys. Going into what was the second round? Oh, sorry, actually, I believe that was the first round. Yeah, when the Matildas were attacking, that 3-cap came around. How concerned were you seeing that 3-cap pop up?
Obviously, I mean, a 3-cap is a matter for concern every time it comes up. But we kind of assume that the Matildas are just going to blindly rush into us every game. So when they actually do it, it's not that much of a surprise. And they did it on Himmelsdorf. It didn't really pan out for them because, again, we expected it. You know, you bring 250Bs, fast-moving tanks. We're expecting you to utilize those fast-moving tanks, right? You bring a Foch B, you're probably going to push and try and kill tanks with it. We didn't respond to it very well. Unfortunately, I think that our tank rotations were a little bit slow. But moving forwards, that can always be fixed.
Okay. Well, speaking of moving forwards, it's Adelaide Action X for you next week, which is for the spot at LAN. Is that a game you're feeling confident about? Are you feeling concerned about Action X's decent season?
It's best of 7 now. It's not best of 5. It's easy from here on out. And then grand finals, best of 9. Like, that's even easier. Right?
All right.
Teams can catch us out a little bit. They can do this. They can do that. Catch us off guard. But you can't do that in best of 7. It's just not possible. You're not going to catch us out 4 times in one game. It just doesn't happen.
All right. Well, I like the confidence, Wymo. I think we'll let you get to bed. I understand you go to bed early these days, right? I think that's what dads do, right?
I work night shift, Elfish.
Oh, damn it. Tried. Didn't work. It's all right. Look, we'll let you get to your work, okay?
Thanks,
Whatever,
boys.
man. All right, I'll see you at LAN.
I'll see you at LAN. No, I'll see you at LAN.
Okay, I'll see you at LAN. All right. Bye. Always an interesting one to chat to, Wymo. We'll see if we see him at LAN. What do you reckon, Cthulhu? I mean, was it enough tonight from Sentinels to convince you? Are you as confident as Wymo was?
I'm not yet fully confident. I'm confident probably enough to think that there's a pretty solid chance for Sentinels to qualify for LAN. For them to make it, or rather to win the grand final, now that is a whole different story that I'm still not yet fully convinced. Because yes, that's great. They were able to, really get themselves going. Yes, it is a very valid point that he made about the fact that, not a whole lot of teams will be able to really catch them off guard on so many maps, on so many rounds, and that's also a very valid point. The problem being is that I think what could end up being is that, they've started now, if the whole theory that they were hiding strats the whole regular season is true, they now started to actually show what they wanting to do, what they're able to do. Now we're looking at that. Sand River could be now looked at, yep, let's ban that. Now we're looking at maybe even Himmelsdorf. Okay, yep, let's ban that. Well, actually, no, sorry. It's either the Himmelsdorf or Cliff, because Cliff at large still is their home ground. So you're now looking at some of the maps where you could start really theory crafting. Now you could really start, delving deep into some of the strats. You could try to counter strat them, but again, against Sentinels so far, it's been a bit of a dubious sort of venture for a number of teams. So look, I mean, for now, I'll reserve my overall opinions of Sentinels in terms of their success towards the grand final. But yeah, LAN is definitely started to become more and more of a real thing. Though Action X, I think with Action X, I'm a little bit on a bit more copium nowadays. But I'm curious to see what they will do in the next week.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
all I'm
look,
gonna say.
there's a lot of thinking to do going into next week, but
yeah,
hopefully the teams are going to come up with something pretty interesting to show us. Let's take a look at today's results just to update those of you who may not have seen the first series or only just tuned in. We are pretty much getting toward the end of the show. Scoreline 3-4 for the Panthers and 2-4 for the Sentinels. So, is that fair to say that both the underdogs got the win today? I don't know necessarily, because I think it's quite hard to look at this season and really accurately rate the teams. But just based on where they placed, both of them would be considered upsets.
Yeah. Look, upsets could definitely happen even next week. For this week, yeah, look, I the first matchup, I'm kind of looking at this. I feel there's a lot of things that could have been, could have been done, could have happened. We could have seen a completely different turnaround. But even then, look, yeah, well played by Panthers. For Sentinels, yeah, look, I suppose hindsight now, looking at it all, it's all sort of same. In terms of the fact that, yeah, Sentinels are still a danger at large going into the playoffs.
Yeah, look, I think we'll sort of wait and see. But the real important talking point, Cthulhu, is I am now on top of the predictions, which don't matter, by the way.
Very nice.
But, I mean, this season, they kind of matter a little bit more than they did last season. That's kind of my takeaway.
I see. Yeah, look, I'll happily take my L and sort of keep on moving. But yeah, look, seems like my original judgment, there was definitely a little bit too sort of I was expecting maybe a little bit too much, or maybe certain things just didn't pan out. Maybe RNG didn't roll. We all have those days where the RNG just outright hates us. So yeah, look, fair enough. I'll take the L for now. I'm I'm excited. I'm excited for the next matchups because both of these ones, the lower semifinal, the upper final, those are all looking juicy.
Bracket may play out. What are you thinking for next week? Scorps. I'd say for Scorps for me, it's kind of hard to go past Scorps. And then I don't know, man. Action X Sentinels. That's a bit of a toss of the dice to me.
Yeah, look, I'll probably have to agree with you with the Scorpions because remembering how they were able to still orchestrate their performances back in a regular season against Panthers, they were able to really pull themselves out of the gutter. So I'll play ball with you here on the Scorpions, same as with Sentinels versus Action X. I've put my faith already before onto Action X. I'll now see if maybe predicting Sentinels will be now the go, and we'll go from there. But as it stands, I'm just curious to see how will Adelaide Action X will be able to really adapt whatever the misfortunes happened these past 2 weeks, and how will they be able to apply it for the upcoming weeks, because this will be arguably one of the most important ones. That's their third and the last chance for the land, mind you, as well.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder as well, like the other question I sort of have to think about is this the season for Scorpions? Because it's been a while, right? They've been cracking away at it, giving it a crack, but this is their first opportunity, I feel like, where they've really looked like the hot favorite coming in. I mean, previous seasons, you could say, okay, they've topped the season, but they lost some series to Sentinels, so there's a bit of a debate to be had there. But this time, it's like, I don't know, Scorpions. Maybe it's time. That's a conversation probably for next week. But we'll take a look at the matches for next round. Obviously, Scorpions, Panthers, talked about it. And then obviously Action X and Sentinels as well. I think two very tight matches. We're looking forward to probably another big week next week. Best of sevens again. And both of them have huge implications. Winner of the first series goes into the grand final. They skipped the second, third place match. And the winner of the second series goes to LAN. The loser's eliminated.
Very much so, yeah. Look, I mean, this arguably is one of the most impactful playoffs we've had for quite a long while. And look, each and every matchup being as heavy in terms of the implications and the opportunities is certainly absolutely great. But yeah, look, LAN is still going to be one way or the other absolutely a heater of a time, and I'm honestly quite keen to see how it all really unveil, even if we do end up running into the Yeol Sydney Derby situation where it's Scorpions versus Sentinels. I'm still going to be excited for it, though I'd still want to see a little bit of some fresh blood to be introduced now to the finals.
Ooh, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I sort of, the thing is, like, I agree in a sense, but what I also want to see is, like, I think for the storyline, you want to see Scorpions versus Sentinels, and like Scorpions have been trying to get the better of Sentinels, so I think they almost deserve that shot. Like if they're going to win against anyone in a grand final, I want it to be against the Sentinels, because I think you lose something if it's not against the Sentinels. But I mean, we'll have to see. Obviously, it'll be a good time either way. We'll have a lot of good matches at the finals, and then we shall take a look at JPL as well, which is kicking off basically now in 4 minutes time. But for you guys, since we're a bit ahead, it's basically now. So get ready to watch that one. We've got a couple of matches coming up for you tonight, and they're in the playoffs as well. So they're basically at the same point in their season as we are, and they'll be looking forward to tuning into their finals fairly shortly as well. It's always interesting to sort of see how the meta is different in different regions and things like that. And even looking at B-League, right? I watch B-League sometimes. Same format for B-League. Different meta sometimes. Different tanks getting pulled out. People coming up with different ideas. They're in playoffs too. It's all playoffs happening right now in the World of Tanks esports.
Exactly that, yeah. Playoffs time everywhere, and look, I mean, it's a huge time for B League. I am actually excited to see that the Lismore Leopards versus Hawthorn Hellcats, because both have been having a bit of a interesting season where Leopards had to basically rebuild once again, similar to how Matildas had to, whereas Hellcats, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they had to make only very minuscule changes to their roster as well, which I'm quite keen to see how will they really be able to perform overall. So look, yeah, B League, JPL, all of them have been really bringing in some really solid games, some really interesting meta changes as well. So look, for all intents and purposes, with playoffs now upon us, I'm looking forward to see some of the introductions here.
All right, well, I think that pretty much wraps us up for the night. It's been a big night. I can't believe, it's 10 o'clock. You think 2 series are going to be over and done with in the blink of an eye, but certainly was not. Either way, thank you guys for watching. Make sure you come back next week because we'll be continuing our playoffs. We'll find out which team will be going through to the LAN to join our top 2, and obviously who's going to be getting seeded into that grand final as well. It's going to be a fun time. I'll be back. Cthulhu, I assume you're going to be back, so we'll look forward to it. We'll have a good time together. Same time, same place next week. We'll see you there. Good night and happy tanking.